I don't know what else to do.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call when you are ready?
Councilwoman Melly Garthwaite,
Melly Garthwaite, Council at Large, present.
Councilman Brian Locks,
Brian Locks, Council at Large, present.
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan,
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan, 1st District, present.
Councilwoman Ruby Melton,
Councilwoman Ruby Melton, 2nd District, present.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali,
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali, 3rd District, present.
Councilman Gary Donovan,
Councilman Gary Donovan, 4th District, present.
Councilman Edward McMillan,
Good evening, Councilman Edward McMillan, 5th District.
Councilwoman Dawn Callahan,
Councilwoman Dawn Callahan, 6th District, present.
Councilwoman Catherine Tucker,
Councilwoman Catherine Tucker, 7th District, present.
Councilman Christopher Vargo,
Councilman Christopher Vargo, 8th District, present.
Councilwoman Katie Muller,
Councilwoman Katie Muller, 9th District, present.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone,
Councilman Stephen Johnstone, 10th District, present.
and Chairman Nicholas Pascal.
Chairman Nicholas Pascal, present.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
We do have a quorum, thank you. First up tonight, we have the public hearing on the Public Lands Committee, Communication C from February 24th. Chairman Donovan, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. The time is 6:52. We have a public hearing on Communication C from the February 24, 2025 agenda from Stephen Fontana, Director of Economic Development, regarding approval of the purchase and sale agreement with Ideal Group LLC for the sale of city-owned property located at 561 Main Street, which is also called Style School. Before I have the public come up and speak on it, I would like Mr. Fontana to come up first, if you don't mind, Steve.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Councilor Donovan, members of the Public Lands Committee, other councilors, and Mayor Bohr. For the record, I'm Steve Fontana. I'm the city's Director of Economic Development, and I reside at 23 Angel Place in North Haven. As I've had the opportunity to come before you on a couple of occasions already about this, I want to thank you for your consideration of the proposal we have before you to convey the Style School to Ideal Group LLC. Just if I may, I'd like to introduce obviously my colleague Mike Agello from the Corporation Counsel's Office, who's here if you have any questions, as well as Florian and Gentian Shihai, who are the principals of Ideal Group, along with their partner and colleague Fernando Pastor, who will be presenting briefly on the proposal. We have submitted to you previously a copy of a summary presentation of the proposal, along with a summary of its points. If I could, I'd just like to briefly summarize it. As you all know, over the course of the last several years, the city has worked to try to identify a suitable and exciting opportunity to redevelop the Style School. And after a process that involved an RFQ and a couple of RFPs, we were able to solicit 3 proposals, and the one that we've selected and brought to you tonight, we believe is the strongest of the 3, in that it preserves and protects and renovates this iconic landmark piece of architecture in the city that memorializes or commemorates the city's first superintendent of schools in a way, again, that preserves and works with the site and the surrounding community. Mr. Pastor will talk about the specifics. In any case, we've submitted as well to you a proposed purchase and sale agreement, which we believe fairly and very favorably actually serves the city's purposes. And I can discuss that, or Mr. Pastor can discuss it, or Mr. Agello. But the bottom line is that this transforms this tremendous asset from a property that is vacant currently, unutilized, and into a home for 30 units of housing and does a nice job of preserving the building for future generations. So with that, I would like to, if I could, introduce Mr. Pastor, who will come up and speak to the presentation. And I did try to provide each of you a copy of that at your desks, but if you don't have the copy, let me know. I've got a few extras. So thank you. Mr. Pastor?
Thank you very much. My name for the record is Fernando Pastor from CNH. I live in 89 Mulberry Hill Street in Camden. And I'm very excited to present this project to you. We saw this school like maybe for the previous administration like 4 or 5 years ago, and we presented a proposal, but we didn't get it. So we're coming back with a different group with the same vision, basically, to preserve this great asset that was built in 1930. It's in really good shape, bones, not shape. It's really in bad shape now because it has been vandalized in the last 5 years. Last 2 years, it's every time that I go there, it's even worse. So it's boarded, but it's still like there's no one piece of glass that is no broken. Everything is on the floors. It's really a mess. But again, it's very good bones that we can clean them up and build the 30 units, which we originally thought of putting a third floor on top of this, and we spent north of $50,000 in tests and engineering, and we came up with the conclusion that it was non-feasible. It was so very expensive to build the third floor, which we all loved because it was a nicer design. Now, preserving this, every classroom will be an apartment with every classroom is 1-bedroom apartment. There's some big classrooms are going to be 2-bedrooms apartments, and then there's studios in the basement, which is we're going to call lower level. It's not a basement, so we will make an access from the back of the school, and they will provide light and air and ventilation to these smaller units. So this shows a typical floor. This is the first floor that shows in every different color. It's a classroom. So the classrooms, you see, we had to put some partition inside, but the windows are large enough to keep a bedroom and a living room and the kitchens and the bathrooms all in a very well lit place, because these windows are like 15 feet tall. They're humongous. Is this on? Yeah. So see, there's in the center. There's a couple of big rooms. So those are going to be the 2 bedrooms, and that's the entrance, and there's stairs there going up. This is like 10 feet off on top of the ground level. So this was the previous design with the floor on top, and this is what we all like better, but unfortunately we won't be able to do. And this is how it will look afterwards. So it's about the same. We're not doing a lot of work outside the building. We're adding banners for identification of the building, and then we're going to put a canopy, a steel canopy in the front to create the entrance. And but the building will look exactly the same, or mostly exactly the same. The big work is on the back, where again we're going to do that lower patio so we can get light to the lower level units on the back, because this one they have windows there. Those are spaces here and here. They are already good for apartment, but on the back there's windows, but they're not egress windows basically. So that's all what I have in panels, but we have some more images in this brochure that we left there. We were supposed to have this on the computer, but it didn't work. So you have here some more plans, and then individual plans of each unit. And there's also some of the project that we're working together with Genti and Florian. We're working on a convent in New Haven that they bought like a year ago, 2 years, and we're converting this company into 10 units now. And there are more other projects that I did before with other groups. This is in Middletown, and this is shovel ready. We're starting to work next month. This is a church that I did in New Haven maybe 5 years ago. And then this our description, our bios there, very short. But I've been doing this remodeling of old buildings for, I don't know, the past 10 years, maybe 15. I came to New Haven to work for Cesar Pelli maybe 25 years ago. And I opened my office maybe 15 years ago. After doing like tall skyscrapers and office buildings and like large projects around the world, I found that this is a niche that I specialize in finding these beautiful buildings that are all around New England, and we can save them and convert them into a new use that will be there for another 50 or 100 years. So if there are any questions.
Well, questions will be asked on our next section.
Okay.
Okay, this is just for the public right now.
Okay.
All right.
So
thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
At this time, anyone from the public would like to speak on the Stiles School on this matter? For a second time. For a third and final time, anyone from the public? I know, Mayor, you would like to add some comments?
Yep. First of all, I want to thank you for your interest in the city of West Haven. We appreciate it. We always love new investors coming to our city. Just as a reminder, I know we talked about this in the last meeting, but just for those listening in the public, this is a building. Actually, you know what? Since we ironically have Board of Ed members here, did anybody teach at Stiles School? There we go. I think Neil was there a bit too. So we've put this building out prior administrations a couple of times. We didn't get any successful bidders. We did have one that was going to pay us $100,000. Wanted to put the hydroponic farm there, but they were looking for $10 million in state funding, which we couldn't do. Put it back out to bid. Our last go round, we had 3 bidders. The other 2 wanted to demolish the building and erect different structures for units, and the price wasn't competitive. So what is attractive about this bid is that we're blending the history with new. So we're taking the building, and I think that's environmentally sustainable and sound approach as well, taking the historic building and renovating it. And this proposal proposed 30 units, where the other proposal were 120 units or 180 units. So I think this is going to be an attractive piece. I live on Main Street and I work on Main Street and go back and forth all day long, and I myself personally are looking forward to seeing this building cleaned up. We took Councilman Vargo and Councilman Donovan, we took a tour inside, and it was, you know, felt like the Titanic walking through there. It was pretty rough shape. It's an eyesore, it's a danger, and it's time we cleaned it up. So I also want to remind everybody that in addition to, so just to back up for a second, we had gotten an estimate to remediate the building. It would be $1 million. So let's say we wanted to retain this building and demolish it. We would have to remediate it ourselves for $1 million and then pay for the demolition. Or, you know, I've heard some folks say, why don't we use it for something? Well, we still got to abate it for $1 million. We would still have to renovate it for $2 million, and then we would have carrying costs. So we hold the building for $3 million, or we sell it for the $450,000. And not only will we get the revenue from the sale, but we will get the revenue from the new sewer fees that we've implemented, which is $100,000, and then of course our building fees. So I think it's going to be a revenue driver. It's going to clean up the neighborhood, and I would request that everybody support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Steve, Mike, for getting this, and thank you again for thinking of West Haven. At this time, the time is now 7:05. The public hearing is closed. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We will now enter into public session. The time is now 7:05. Would anyone like to speak before the City Council? Yes, please.
I'm a regular. Hi, I'm Kathy Hebert. I live at 166 Bloom Street, West Haven. And I'm here, the last time I was here, I was talking about West River Memorial Park as one of my topics. I'm part of the West Haven Watershed Coalition. It's a mouthful. And we're working on a trail that will go from UNH to Southern, primarily through Marginal Drive. And I think I told you we met with Scrog, and one of the recommendations was to do a walking audit, which I've never done before, but it's where a group of us are going to be meeting. And I emailed many of you, and I have some copies, and I'll send it out. And it's next Saturday, March 15th at 1 p.m. And this area is mostly New Haven, but also West Haven. And we're going to meet on the side of Route 34, Yale, and I wrote all this down. On Derby Avenue and Yale intersection, and there is a parking lot across the street for people to park. We're going to have various New Haven representatives. I've invited various West Haven residents. I'm also trying to get more people in Allentown and Marginal Drive to come out. Even though we're not walking on Marginal Drive this time, we will be in another month, because it's just too much to do the safety audit. And we have a whole survey. I have a copy of that, but it's going to be pretty interesting. We'll be talking about the history. We'll also be talking about safety issues for West Haven residents and New Haven. And for whoever doesn't know, there's two new housing developments, one at the bottom of MLK and Legion Avenue on El Grasso, and also on where Barnard School is on Derby Avenue, where the old, it was a laundry place. And that's like 4 stories. I went by 4 or 5 stories. So that's going to be a bunch of families that hopefully will have access to West River Memorial Park. And we're really worried about the safety of people. And there's bus stops over there, et cetera. I mean, that's getting into a lot of other stuff. But we really want to encourage West Haven people, because the easiest access is going to be Marginal Drive. And we're going to be applying for a grant, and we're doing all kinds of stuff I don't want to bore you with, but I will come probably once a month and give you an update. And, whoever didn't get this is a copy of the email I sent out, a couple of copies of the route we're doing, and I have more information if anybody wants it. Okay, you can pass it, because I didn't send the email to everyone, because I know you get inundated with all the emails from everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak before the City Council? Yes.
Hello, my name is Sarah Lee Cervera. I live at 107 Baker Street, but I'm here on behalf of my 89-year-old grandmother and my uncle, who live at 18 King Place in West Haven. And we have concern regarding 18 King Place, particularly the portion of the road that is privately owned. It has been left to deteriorate, basically. I would describe it as having several craters on the road that I think have become a big issue, not only for the residents of the street, but also individuals who are driving by. Just last month in February, there were 2 cases that I caught on our Ring camera of drivers by who got stuck on that street. And the first incident I saw, the police had to be called, and another emergency vehicle came out to help get them out. And I do have pictures of the road. And even last spring, when there is a lot of snow or a significant amount of rainfall, it puddles up pretty significantly, and there were 2 ducks that I saw hanging around last spring. And I just think that I respect owning property, but I also believe that there is a responsibility as an owner that you have to your community. And I believe that it's gotten to a point where it no longer respects the residents of that street or the people who come in and out. I also know, employees at the that work at the VA that go out and walk, and I just think that it's becoming a pretty significant danger to anyone who's passing by that place. I don't know what solutions there can be for this, but I would just hope that there's some way that we can address and try to mitigate these issues. And my last point also I'll add is as I mentioned, my grandmother is 89. She also has dementia, and we've done everything that we can to make sure that there are no further possibilities of her leaving the house. Her neighbor across the street is also elderly with dementia and has left the house. And, my personal fear is the road is so uneven that there is a high risk of falling. I think that covers the majority of that. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. We can keep these photos?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for letting us know. We'll see what can be done. Would anyone else like to speak before the city council? For a second time, hello.
I'm actually here for the later part, but since I'm here, I'm Kebby Waterfield, 70 Seaview Avenue. I just wanted to come on behalf of the West Haven Seahawks and thank you all for the wonderful reception that you gave the Tiny Mite cheerleaders, and they were super thrilled to have the autograph pictures that came later from the mayor. And also I wanted to thank you for the repair and cleaning of the bleachers at Veterans Field. That moved very swiftly. They were installed, they were all cleaned, it looks spectacular. Hopefully there will be no further issues with them from outside renters that were not the Seahawks breaking them. Just wanted to get that on the record, but we really appreciate your investing some ARPA money up at Veterans Field. So I just wanted to say thank you.
And thank you. It was a pleasure to have all of you there. Would anyone else like to speak before the city council? For a second time, would anyone like to speak before the city council? For the third and final time, would anyone like to speak before the city council? Public session is now closed at 7:12. We will now convene the March 10th, 2025 regularly scheduled council meeting at 7:13. I'm looking for a motion to approve the journal of February 24th, 25.
Motion.
Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Abstain. No. Sarah and myself. And myself wasn't here. Thank you. When the clerk is ready, if she could pass out the communications for this evening.
We have communication A from the tax collector regarding overpayment refunds for March 2025, which will be filed with tonight's minutes, and that's all the communications we have this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We will now recess into committee meetings at, we'll say 7:14. First up, we have the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Akbarali.
Thank you, Chairman. The time is now 7:14, and your Committee on Finance is now in session. Members present are Councilman Vargo, Councilman Locks, Councilwoman Tucker, Councilman Johnstone, and myself, Councilwoman Akbarali, as chair. The first order of business is a presentation from Joseph Centofanti, PKF O'Connor Davies, regarding federal single audit and state single audit of the City of West Haven, Connecticut for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024, FY23, annual financial statement for the year ended June 30th, 2024, and corrective action plan. Mr. Centofanti?
Hello. All right, I'm just going to walk through some highlights of the various different reports that hopefully you all have, and then open up to any questions.
Mr. Centofanti, if you could just get really close to the mic, you're very soft-spoken.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that better? All right. All right, as we'll see later on, towards the end of the presentation, the city did make significant progress as compared to last year with some of the findings and that type of thing. So I'm going to give away the ending, but that's I'm going to put that up front, and we'll walk through the highlights. So, unmodified opinion on the financial statements which is the type of opinion that you're looking for. Again, the MD&A is something I recommend everyone read because it is a good executive summary of what happened during the year, some of the significant changes as compared to prior year. It'll talk about some of your budgetary transfers. It'll talk about different issues, the Allentown additional pension contribution, transfers out to sewer. So some of the different things that happened during the year and where they are in the financials. It talks about capital asset activity, which the biggest activity you had was the construction of the elementary school. And then the other one was Beach Street improvements for almost $9 million. Some of the things that highlighted in the financials, again, I'm highlighting that the pension fund's investment concentrations are over 5%, which is a required disclosure, and alternative investments or just riskier investments. So it's something to pay attention to. And the other new thing that happened this year in the financials is both the city and Allentown OPEB trust funds were established, and they're recorded for the first time this year in the financial statements. So general fund, which is exhibit C and D in the audit, page 20 and 22. You have unassigned fund balance at $21.2 million. That equates to about 12.5% of fund balance, which is a significant increase over the 9% last year. So you're on your way kind of where the rating agencies are pushing. You're over 10, that's good. They like 15 to 20 these days, but you're in a good place now at 12.5. So the net change in fund balance, the increase for the operations for the year was the 6.4 million, which is how you got that significant increase in the percentage. So where did that 6 million come from? 2.4 of it was on the revenue side. Initial revenue sharing grant of 1.4. You had a little bit less in ECS money, and then income from investments was over budget by about $1.5 million. And that added together with your expenditure savings of almost $4 million, and general, that was driven by general government, about 712, mostly the planning and development consulting services, public works, highways and park maintenance was under by 600,000. And debt service, due to the timing of when your debt was issued, was under budget by $2 million. So those two numbers together, the $4 million expenditures underspent and $2.4 million additional revenue equal your $6.4 million of positive operations. So Allentown Fire Department on page 22 and pages 95 and 96. So basically, after the additional pension contribution, additional appropriation of $1.1 million, basically you're a break-even net position of about $50,000 for the year. The sewer fund, again, that was last year. You had a little bit of a loss, about $200,000. This year, you're about break-even at $26,000, and that's including the transfer that was made during the year of the $990,000. Internal service funds, again, some more good news is general liability and the workers' compensation fund now have a positive current ratio, and the current ratio is just a measure, do you have enough cash to pay your current liabilities? Last year, you were at 0.4 for general liability and 0.8 for workers' comp. This year you're at, for general liability, 1.8 and 2.46 for workers' comp, and that was mostly as a result of the $2 million contribution from ARPA, but you also had positive operations of another $3 million. And the medical insurance is in just a little bit underfunded as far as you're looking for like a 25% equity is 25% of claims as a benchmark just to cover your your exposure as far as budgeting 100%, you're responsible for 125% of expected claims. So the 25% is the benchmark to be able to offset that if that occurs. Pension funds. So the police pension fund increased the funding percentage increased 5.7%. Basically, that was last year there was a change in discount rate that drove it down. The net change in fair value was $17.2 million. So that was the biggest driver in increasing the funding of that. The Allentown pension went from 39% to 47.38, up 8%. So that was a nice increase. Part of that, again, was that additional $1.1 million contribution and a net change in fair value of the 1.7. A well-funded pension plan, general benchmark is 70% plus. So you're on the right track, but still a little bit more work to do on that one. The OPEB funds, the city fund, basically, due to setting up the trust fund, it did knock down your liability quite a bit, by about $35 million. So for just the change in assumptions for the discount rate, because now you conceptually, although you don't have much assets, it's initially used to calculate and difference between expected and actual claims. So your liability in total for the city went down $70.5 million. Still have a liability of 158, but that's about a 1/3 decrease just by establishing the trust funds. So hopefully you can continue to fund that. You'll be able to do that, and kind of that'll reduce the liability a lot faster. So it's about 0.6% funded. The city plan, the Allentown plan's about 1% funded, and that liability, because it's smaller, has different variables. It went down by 3.2 million from 24.9 down to 21.7. So again, all positive trends. Federal and state single audit. So on page 7 of that document, it's a separate smaller document. The city spent $34.5 million in federal money. We had an unmodified opinion on compliance. There was one internal control finding related to bank reconciliations. Again, this was a material weakness last year, is downgraded to significant deficiency. Again, part of the progress that was made during the year. The procurement suspension debarment, that's a work in progress. So part of that was addressed during the year. As far as updating the policy, there's just a few other areas the policy needs to get updated. So the programs that we tested was the Community Development Block Grant, ARPA money, and education stabilization, the ESSER funds, which, those are basically, they're mostly done at June 30. They're actually done completely at September 30, 24. For state single audit on page 18, the city spent $84.2 million. Again, an unmodified opinion on compliance. The same internal control finding applies to the state single audit. There were a couple findings from last year. The Community Conservation Resource Grant reporting, which school readiness subrecipient, again, there was some progress made on that. So part of the monitoring was put in place, but not all of it. And then the Medicaid reporting, there was some finding related to some of the costs that were reported for reimbursement. So for state, we tested a lot more programs. The Alliance District, increasing the set aside, school readiness and priority school districts, Town Aid Road, and tiered payment in lieu of taxes, and Medicaid were the programs that were tested last year. So as far as recommendations, I did list a few of them. Again, the first one I mentioned was the significant deficiencies relates to bank rec. Again, that was material weakness downgraded to significant deficiency, hoping for 2015, that will be eliminated. So the payroll material weakness was removed. We still have a recommendation because you have some compensating controls, so things that may mitigate it, but textbook controls are still not in place in that. For the payroll processing for both town and boards, so that's still a recommendation as far as a best practice and a risk. General ledger maintenance from last year is just timing. Again, definite improvement, but there's some additional accounts that just need some attention. And now that you're fully staffed, hopefully those reconciliation process for accounts receivable, unearned revenue will be done as part of the audit close. Capital assets, looking at a formal policy. Allentown pension plan investment policy Allentown doesn't have a formal policy. I think this was there last year, so we recommend that they have a formal policy. Because some of the current investments that they're in do not line up with what's existing as far as the policy. All right. So one of the new ones was other post-employment benefits. So basically, for this year, the city just got things started. So both Allentown and the city were recorded in the same fund and invested in the same account. But due to the statutes related to Allentown, those really need to be separated, as everything else is in Allentown. In the audit report, that need to be reported separately and in a physical separate investment account. Again, the other sub-recipient monitoring, we just kind of clarified again, there was progress made. They have good process for program monitoring, just need to increase the strength of the financial monitoring. And the Medicaid program, again, that was a finding. It was the cost of insurance that was reported incorrectly in the reimbursement request. So if you look at the last page of the recommendations, it does list all the recommendations that were removed from last year. So for the city, there were 9 recommendations, and I listed the previous recommendation number that were removed, such as the vendors being properly approved, payroll registers being reviewed, non-standard entries being reviewed, the other purchasing, quotes and documentation, purchase order system was implemented. For Allentown, there were 2 recommendations that were removed related to personnel files and not charging expenditures to a contingency line. For education, 4 recommendations were removed, again related to payroll registers, tuition activity, education grants, and budget transfers were approved correctly. And best practices. So best practices, the city council also did transfers that were in the budget, so you'll see that there's no negative variances on the RSI schedules this year. So we got our required communications as part of the audit. We do audit estimates. The most significant ones are the pension and OPEB liabilities. And there was no new accounting policies implemented during the year. The disclosures are clear and neutral. We did have some material adjustments that are attached to our required communications, and some of those are related to the recommendations for receivables and those type of things. And we are independent of the city. As far as what's coming up, next year is compensated absences, so it's going to change the way that accrual is accounted for. This original statement was issued back in it was GASB 16, and GASB has a policy of every 20 years to review. So this policy is hopefully going to get everyone to calculate this more consistently. It's a little bit different now because it's going to look more than what vests. It's going to look at what employees will take in the next year. In addition, previously it was more focused on what would be paid at retirement. And then updated reporting models. So the financials, they were last changed in 2002. So luckily GASB didn't go too crazy with this, and so there'll be some changes to the MD&A and some presentation of budget discussion and budget presentation, and change some terminology, and then for some changes to proprietary funds, which the city doesn't have outside internal service, so it won't really impact the city. So those are the highlights. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Centofanti. Mayor Bohr, did you have something to add to that one? We can ask questions in a minute. No.
First of all, I want to thank you for being here, and also all the great audit work that you have done and performed. I know you've been here a few years, and I know we haven't been the easiest to audit, and you've given us a lot of recommendations that we've followed. A lot of numbers and a lot of details. Here's what I heard. Lots of progress, on the right track, looks good. So we thank you for all that. Joe did present in front of the MARB already. MARB had a few questions that you were able to clarify for them. They were very satisfied with the progress. I think really the punchline is we're paying down our liabilities. We have a healthy fund balance, and our material weaknesses have been cleared, right? I would say, to me, those are like the top 3 categories that fall under. And then, as a reminder, we talked about this last week, that there was a significant deficiency. So remember, the audit is through June 30th, 2024. So we've made progress since June 30th, 2024 over the next 6 months. And during that period, the consultant indicated that we cleared the significant deficiency. So really all the items that have been highlighted through the years have been cleared. So I want to, we still have work to do. Still have a lot of work to do, but I think we made significant progress. And I want to thank Michael and the finance team for all the work that they've done and all the work that they've done with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bohr. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Centofanti? Councilman Locks?
Thank you, Councilwoman Aquarelli. Hey, thanks for putting this together, and thanks for coming in tonight. We appreciate it.
Sure.
When it comes to your CAP, your corrective action plan, if you look at page 1 and you're talking about finding 2024-001, the bank reconciliation, at what point in time will this be considered closed?
All right, just to be clear, that's the city's document, not mine.
Oh, it's the city's document.
But conceptually, I guess the mayor said it, in their mind it is closed because it's an internal control issue. If the control is not functioning during my audit period, it's going to show up.
Okay.
So as long as next year the control is functioning,
okay,
which we're hearing that it is, I mean, we'll have.
So this first page is not from the most recent audit. You've got a corrective action on here. Is that from the most recent audit?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my question is, if you read this, it sounds like you've executed. But if you read the bottom, it sounds like there's a standard operating procedure or something that must be put in place for the city so that this is institutionalized and documented for generations to come. And it sounds like it's not done yet. Oh, okay.
That's if that's okay. I respond.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
That's what I was just saying. So his audit, the audit, not your audit, was through fiscal year, so it ended June 30, 2024.
Okay.
The MARB paid a consultant, Protivity,
okay,
2 consultants to be in the city of West Haven for $1 million each that our taxpayers will be paying back. They were hired in the prior administration because they felt they needed help to put together practices and internal controls. Protivity, who is the consultant, has given a report as of December 31st, saying what was identified in the audit was cleared in the last 6 months. So Joe's audit is through June 30th. Protivity, who MARB hired, is through December 31st, and they said in the 6 months between when the audit ended and now, these items have been cleared.
Okay. So my question is, even though the corrective action plan is asking for certain things, if you read the bottom here, you would get a vibe that some documentation has to take place and it hasn't happened yet?
Because he can only comment through June 30th.
Gotcha.
He
Okay.
cannot say, if Joe saw that we cleared it July 3rd,
Yep.
he still can't talk about it.
Okay.
Because
Gotcha.
he's only allowed to comment through June 30th.
Okay.
That's why we have the supplemental consultants.
Okay,
in
so
here.
maybe I'm missing something here. If I look at this page 3, it sounds like something's not done. Like if you read this, so should I assume that you have a SOP? Look at page 3 for instance. Is there an SOP in place that documents your process for this?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions for Mr. Centofanti? Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joe, thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Sure.
I know some of the council members received this a little late, but I think there's some highlights that the mayor pointed out that are really worth noting because I think they're pretty substantial. I'm looking at the annual financial report, the larger document, page 8. I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So it looks like that our current and other assets, I'm going to use round numbers for ease, increased from FY23 to FY24 by about $20 million.
Yes.
Plus or minus.
Right, and that's everything combined because these are the government wide, so it's not just your budget; it's every single fund, including Allentown, the sewer fund, all the Board of Ed funds. It's the whole city together.
And likewise, the cities, the cumulative long-term liabilities, we actually paid down $85 million. It went down $85 million plus or minus.
Right, you didn't necessarily pay it, but the liability estimates we talked about for pension OPEB because of setting up the trust, the estimates were reduced.
So our
but
final
effectively-
position improved. I know it's a little confusing with the negative numbers, but actually improved by $25 million.
Correct.
Right. Thank you. And I know that this council approved a fund balance policy that our finance director presented to us a couple of months ago, and it looks like we exceed that. Madam Chair, may I ask Mr. Gorman if that's okay? Mr. Gorman, is that correct? That it looks like that your policy was 8% and we're hovering around 12.5%? So we're actually exceeding what's required. That's it. I just wanted to highlight just a couple of the more notable improvements we made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Tucker?
Thank you for your report. I guess the question I have, as part of the action plan, where it speaks to the education department, so the Board of Ed's piece is in here too?
Correct.
And is that something that you, Mayor, would speak to, or is that something that they would speak to?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. Say it again.
So the action plan has commentary or has sections in here that speak directly to the Board of Education and the action plan relating to the Board of Ed. And so my question is, do you speak to that, or does the Board of Ed speak to that, or who gets to control that?
Both. Whenever we're going through an audit, we work really closely, and if there's something that the Board of Ed's struggling with, we help. At the end of the day, the Board of Education would implement their own policies, but we are the liaison and we help to move things along with the auditors. We're kind of like the triage and then also help the Board of Ed. So if there's specific questions for the Board of Ed, the finance director from the Board of Ed can answer, or we can do the best that we can, having helped them to be able to say what the status is.
Yeah, so I guess that's the question is, so this audit was done by the auditor for the city and not the auditor by the Board of Ed?
Nope, it's both.
So
It's
they did
both.
it together?
Yep.
So these recommendations are together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome, Councilwoman. Any other questions for Mr. Centofanti? Thank you, Mr. Centofanti. I really appreciate your presentation.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, Yeah, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Tucker has one more.
Before you go, because we're looking at the recommendations on on page 4 and page 5, and I guess I just would like to get a little bit more understanding of what is actually being stated in both of those recommendations. So I don't know if you can speak to that or if the other auditor would.
The actual recommendations letter?
Yes, so it's talking about the recommendations made to the Department of Education about following monitoring activities and just what
The
that's...
school readiness? Are you asking about the school readiness
Yes.
issue, Joe?
Okay. So they had the subrecipient monitoring, because the city passes through those monies to some outside agencies to run those programs. So when that happens, whoever the grantee is required to monitor both program and financial aspects of that grant to make sure everything goes correctly. So the Board of Ed has a very good program monitoring process, but the financial monitoring process needs to be more formally documented. So I recommend checklists, something, so that's clear from an audit process that they're monitoring that. So they're monitoring how the program runs, but the financial part wasn't monitored. We didn't have documentation to show that it was monitored correctly. So that's what that recommendation is getting at. So last year was, I think, similar, or I think they improved that, where the program monitoring was much clearer, and now it's the financial monitoring that we just need to be looking at financial information on site and recalculating the fees, and just there's very specific things that they should be doing from a financial perspective.
You know, just for a little bit more clarity, because my understanding was always that our budgets were separate. So how does that look? What does that monitoring look like? Who's responsible for it? How does the council know that that's being done or has been done? How would we know that?
Other than asking them, because it's not a program I necessarily test every year.
But as an audit, I guess that's what I'm getting at.
So
You're talking about checks and balances, right?
Right.
So if you can't check it and balance it, I don't know how we would.
Yeah, I once it's a finding, I do have an obligation to check to see that it's been resolved. But we do rotate programs that we test. So once it's resolved, there should be a process internally to make sure that the process stays working. Just because we don't test the same grants every year based upon the state requirements, we have to rotate what we test, that type of thing. But so while it's a finding, then I would be responsible to evaluate, correct it or not. So next year you clearly would get an answer based upon the audit, because I will look at it and ask them for that documentation.
Thank you.
Just to finalize that, the school readiness grant is the responsibility of the Board of Education.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions for Mr. Centofanti? Thank you, Mr. Centofanti. I appreciate it. Up next, we have our finance updates from Michael Gormany, our finance director.
All right, good evening, everyone. So just the finance updates for this month is the finance department submitted the January monthly report to the city council, which everyone should have received a copy. There weren't a lot of changes from the previous month. We did start to update some of our projections, especially based on taxes. We looked at our second half collections, which is really one of the areas that we wanted to focus in on. Based on those second half collections, we did put the estimated collection rate, which is very close to what we collected last year in taxes, which was about a little bit above a 98 percentile, is what we're projecting in overall tax collections from the levy. Motor vehicle is slightly down. Again, this is something that we've seen across the board in cities and towns, as I mentioned at previous meetings. But we are slated to collect about 88%. That's what we're projecting on that tax levy as well. Overall, on the city side, we're projecting a small surplus for the fiscal year based on revenues that we're projecting and then expenditure savings. We do have some vacancies for this fiscal year that, we've been working hard to fill, but, not everything was filled July 1st, so that created some savings throughout the year. Some of that is mitigated with some overtime in some departments. But overall, we are projecting savings in various departments, which are reflected within the report. So again, we're projecting a small surplus on the general fund side. On the Allentown Fire Department side, we're projecting about a little bit over a $400,000 surplus within Allentown Fire Department. Again, as we've done the last few years, that would generally go towards paying down the liabilities, which, as you heard from Mr. Centofanti, that has been a good thing as our liabilities have started to go down within the city of West Haven. And on the sewer operations, we continue to work with the sewer operations. That's one of those areas that can change from month to month, depending on the needs and the operations over there at the plant based on what's going on. Because again, it's a sewer plant, so there are things that may come up, equipment, other needs, shifts, other things on the personnel side that we may have to do within the fiscal year. So we continue to work with the WPCA just on their overall operations. So again, I think it's, we are on Allentown and General Fund projecting a surplus for the fiscal year, and we continue to monitor the sewer fund through the year. As I always mention, these reports are at a point in time. So, we continue to do budget projections every month in finance, and numbers change, So, again, this is as of the month of January 2025. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gormany. Do you have a dollar amount for the general fund surplus?
So right now we're projecting about $315,000 in a surplus. Again, that's a number that fluctuates throughout the year. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Gormany? Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Being that we're going to be receiving the budget fairly soon, I think a lot of us are just really diving deep into these numbers. And I want to just focus on a few things, specifically on the sewer operation document and then the larger general document. So first on the sewer, page 2, account ending in 52650, other rent, is a very large number. I was wondering if you had some information on that.
Are you looking? You're looking at the Munis report?
I am.
Okay. Let me just get that up.
Do you want me to help you answer that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my thing is
no, that's
running
okay.
a little slower.
That's okay. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm thinking it says large rent, WPC.
Other rent, yes.
Other rent. That's the facility on Forest Road that we rent because we have to keep the trucks inside. Because if we don't keep these trucks inside, then they're going to freeze and they're going to break. We don't have any facility that has indoor capabilities of a lot of our public works or our WPCA trucks. It's actually something you will see in your upcoming budget because we have to make that change because we're renting all over, the city to try to keep our trucks protected. But is also because we're renting that to keep our trucks there. There's also an operation room that has all the computers and the TVs, and it's where we have our camera truck as well. So the folks, they're called lead operators. They operate out of there.
Thank you.
But we are looking to renegotiate that lease and probably not renew it for a full year.
Okay, thank you. Now I just have a couple questions on the general city, the larger document.
Okay.
Page. Is it helpful if I give you page numbers?
Sure.
Page 5, the purchasing department.
Yep.
Just curious, generally, what's going on there that we're significantly over budget by February.
So one of the things you have to realize when you're looking at these reports is, I believe, one of the things that's driving that number are the encumbrances. So purchasing also manages central services and office supplies. So one of the things that I believe you'll see in the upcoming reports is that that encumbrance number will go down, which will drive down that purchasing department deficit slightly, because what we do is we encumber all the office supplies and other areas at the beginning of the year, but that number it does not always come out to play as we go through beyond within the fiscal year. Sorry, I'm stumbling tonight. It doesn't always come out to play the way that it's encumbered. So we've actually started looking at that, and that number is going to start coming down.
So it centralizes into one
Yes.
line item and then eventually gets dispersed
Correct.
among the appropriate departments.
Correct, because we've
later.
centralized various supply ordering and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Page 15, Bennett Rink. Do you know when we pay? We pay the Board of Ed. Is that correct? The $25,000?
Correct. That's for parks and recreation programming, more along the lines during the summertime, but that's what that $25,000 is.
And do you know when we will be paying that?
That's generally in the May or June
Okay.
area when summer programming is going to begin.
Gotcha. And then my last question is really just the whole span of page 17 through 75. Is that entire section of pages one department? Is that the Board of Education?
17 through 75 on the that is the breakdown of general fund expenses. Okay. Yes. Yes, so the Board of Ed is broken down into the different areas.
So that whole
Yes.
batch of, okay. And am I correct that the reason it's reflecting 100% fund is because the city pays a whole dollar and then it goes to the Board of Ed to spend in accordance with its budget? So we are reporting that we have provided the Board of Education with the full budget amount?
Correct. So you have to remember that we have the ECS funding that comes directly to the city, and then there's the local share, but we all share the same financial system and other stuff. So for example, they work on their payables and we pay it in finance. So it's sort of like one area, and that's why it's included within the packet. So we work closely with the finance director on their projections, their monthly projections to include in ours.
Does the council ever see those numbers?
I believe they present it to their Board of Education, and
Okay.
I know when we are at the MARB meeting, I do a city overview, and then they do a Board of Ed overview on where they're going.
Okay. I only ask because we've been given a budget, and I think that some of us would be interested to know just how all the departments are tracking.
Right.
So I just think that would be
So yeah, I
helpful
think
information.
as part of the budget process, as it was mentioned, one of the areas that the city charter recommends is projection as we're going, and a projection included in the mayor's proposed budget. So again, we try our best because again, even that document is a point in time.
Mhm.
So I think, as in the past, you'll see what we're projecting for the departments on those line items and then what the mayor's recommending.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other questions for Mr. Gormley? Councilman Locks?
Thank you, Chairman Akbar Ali. Hey, I hate to beat a dead horse. When it comes to the procurement piece and the centralized services that you spoke about, I guess my question is, does the centralized service procurement include Board of Ed expenses?
No. So
Okay.
when I talk about centralized services,
Yep.
primarily we deal with the city, right?
Yes.
The city side of the budget, and then
Yep.
the Board of Ed has their own finance team, like
Yep.
their own finance director and some staff members that deal with their
Yep.
purchasing process.
Okay.
We generally follow the same policies and everything.
Okay.
But they deal with that on their end.
Okay. So just to build on that, I don't want to beat a dead horse because it'll save me later on when I talk to the Board of Ed. Who's your office supply provider? Can you tell me that?
So we utilize different office supply providers
Okay.
to look at best pricing.
Okay.
Again, a lot of municipalities, including us, utilize Amazon, WB Mason. Those
Sure.
are like the primary suppliers. We have Staples out there. So
Sure.
again, we have different state contracts.
Yep.
And cooperative consortiums that we utilize for office supplies.
Okay.
For the city.
Okay. So when it comes to the Board of Ed, they probably do something completely different. You don't know what their procurement practices are, correct?
To an extent,
Yep.
I know they utilize the same vendors primarily that we do on the city side.
Yep.
I can't get into like their entire ordering and what they order, but I
Exactly.
know they utilize a lot of the same vendors that we do. Yep.
Yeah, I guess my point is, obviously you have a usage scenario for
Yep.
the city. You buy X every year, and they do their own thing.
Correct.
Okay. Huge opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilman Locks. Councilman Tucker?
I'm going to ask the question of the mayor. Is that okay? Okay. So the question I have is when you're going through the process, are you able to see the budget for the Board of Ed? So when you're being, asked for funding or there's deliberation going on about what the budget needs are, you're able to see their budget to know where they have deficits and needs and all that, or is it just blind to you as well as it is to us?
I get the information periodically, but I cannot track it in real time. So I don't always see where they're tracking. No.
So it's an honor system.
Yeah, well, Neil will print me a report periodically, but I don't have the ability to go in the system like I do with our departments. I like to go in and say, hey, how come you asked for 100,000 and we've only spent 10,000? And, is that a seasonal payment? What's going on? Do you still need it? I like to ask those questions. I
Yeah.
don't have the ability as much to ask those questions with the Board of Education.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions for Mr. Gormany? Mayor Bohr?
Thanks. I don't have a question. I just want to let everybody know because I think Michael forgot to mention this part. Last week we did a presentation to Moody's. So, as you know, Standard & Poor's and Moody's are the credit rating agencies for national and, obviously municipalities. We've had 2 credit rating upgrades with Standard & Poor's in the past year. Moody's would not re-rate us, if that's a term, last year. And so last week, we did a 3-hour presentation to Moody's. It took us about 2 8. It takes a lot of preparation work. We have a whole team that goes in there. Got to know our stuff cold. I think we did a good job. And tomorrow we will get the results. We're certainly not going to go backwards. We're hoping for a positive outlook. Not sure if they'll upgrade us, but we're looking for a positive outlook. And then we also gave a supplemental information to Standard & Poor's because they required it because of our bonding. So we'll get more information on our status tomorrow. Cross your fingers.
Thank you, Mayor Bohr. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Gormany? I think we're good, Mr. Gormany. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, we have our MARB meeting update. Mayor Bohr?
So with respect to the MARB, as you recall, our last meeting, we were heading into a special meeting with the MARB to talk about what is the criteria for our exit plan. There was a subcommittee meeting Subcommittee of the MARB for the City of West Haven hadn't met for 10 months, so I'm glad that they had met. And what this meeting came down to is, just as a friendly reminder, I know I say it every meeting, but there was specific criteria in the state statute of how you are released from MARB. We have met every one of those criteria as to how you are released. No deficits, didn't take any money, our audits are good, our fund balance is good, our credit rating is good. We've made a lot of progress. Except for that last criteria they added in May 2024 that says you can't have any unsound financial practice, but they have not defined that for us. We've been asking them to define it. So that last meeting was a lot of debate on exactly what does that mean. What does an unsound financial practice mean? And has the city engaged in any? They came up with maybe 7 or 8 points that they thought. But I think after a conversation with us, they put those to bed. And now it comes down to one issue, if I'm understanding the conclusion of that meeting, because it was very confusing, and that's the police pension. So they are meeting on March 21st in executive session to specifically talk about the status of the police pension. We are not going into that executive session. You know, I would like to be in that executive session because the last MAR meeting they had, we were not in the executive session and they did not conclude, and they came out of that meeting saying, oh, we think we need you in the meeting. So that is March 21st to determine whether the police pension should be tied to our release. And then from there, if there's a vote, it depends. If they're tying the police pension to our release, it's in court. And the court doesn't start until January 2026. Little frustrating, right? Because we have done every single thing we could as a city, collectively, city, Board of Ed, team, constituents, we've all buckled down. One issue was the police pension, and really it was the state's responsibility to move that along and resolve that. So the irony is holding us in for something that. So I'm looking forward to the 21st, and we'll see where that goes, and I will report out. Thank you. But all of the reports from them have been really good.
I appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions for Mayor Borer? Councilman Vargo?
Thank you. I'm just going to ask the question. Is the issue the fact that the police pension issue hasn't been resolved, or is it that they have a problem with the structure of the pension that we're proposing?
So you open the question. So they have a problem with the structure of the pension, but so the police provided a proposal that the prior administration signed off on, right? The police and the city agreed to the pension. That pension plan went to the MARB. The MARB, this is the union perspective and the state perspective. The union perspective is the MARB did not respond to that package. They did not say yes, they did not say no. The state said we didn't have enough information to say yes or no. So it went to court. My challenge is that when something is going to court, you do everything you can to resolve it. And it doesn't always have to play out in court. So in November, even though the city is not a plaintiff or a defendant, I called the union rep, I called the Attorney General's office, and I called Secretary Beckham, and I said, if everybody came back to the table for mediation, would you do that? Everybody said yes. That's what you're supposed to be doing, right? If a union presents a proposal and you may think it's a little rich, present a counter proposal, and then you negotiate, and that's how that works. Somebody is suing, you know, I think you do what you can to resolve it. So they came back to the table for mediation, and they went January 10th to mediation for the first time. The police union was willing to, you know, listen and discuss some of the points that the MARB had concerns with. They made progress. They made about 85% progress. And then there was a supplemental meeting where that progress was halted a little bit, a lot. It was put on pause because the state felt they needed more information. Then the judge said, okay, put together a list of what you need from the union for our next mediation date. The state put that list together for the union and the union got it the night before the mediation. So there's been some frustration even in the mediation. So now they're going to their next mediation session. So, frustrating for us. I know that the MAR banged their head against a brick wall for 7 years here, shoveled against the tide, and did a lot of work for us. If we didn't have that funding from the MARB, I don't know where we would be right now as a city. They did a lot of work for us, but this last year, I think we're, really pulling our weight, if you will, and we need them to help us move this pension along.
And it sounds like the frustration is that there's not a lot we can do as a city
Exactly.
to move this forward.
Right. So
we've done our work.
That's what I'm saying. The irony is for this to be the last criteria to hold us in when really it's the state's role to move this along is what I'm trying to convey as eloquently and as politely as I can. I choose my words.
You did a great job.
I choose my words in public very carefully. It's that's what I said. You can move the goalpost. Just tell us where in the field where it is, and we'll hit it. But I know they're a little gun shy because of what we went through and what they went through with us. So
Understood.
We'll see.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other questions for Mayor Bohr? Thank you so much, Mayor Bohr. I really appreciate your update. Okay, up next we have Neil Cavallero on the discussion on West Haven Board of Education regarding FY25 through FY26 budget. We have Neil.
Make sure everybody gets one. Make sure Kevy gets one too. Kev. Yeah. No, you don't need to come up with it. Take a copy. Yeah, take notes. So we've got about 30 or 40 people here that can't get in. So. Give one to Brian. Give it to Brian. Brian, you have. I wish you wore your green hat. I'm sorry, Nick. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Neil. Whenever you're ready.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
So first of all, Nick, thank you for inviting us today. It's a little unusual for this sequence, but when I spoke to Nick, when I spoke to Kebby separately, I told them both I thought this was a really good opportunity for us to explain our process to you guys, to open the lines of communication. When I present the board, my budget to the board in January, what I always like to tell them is that it is a lengthy presentation, a lengthy process that literally starts probably in mid-November. This year we started a little bit early because most of you may know Matt Cavallaro, who was our finance director, left for another position, and we have a new finance director who transitioned in the time that we did our budget and actually presented the budget to the board. So Kimberly Kinsella, and they're both here tonight. And if you have any questions, they'll do the best they can to help you with. Matt will probably be my go-to person tonight for any specific questions. Also, when we were invited here tonight, the secretary said bring anybody you thought might be helpful. We have our facilities people here. We have our athletic people here today. All of the principals who operate various budgets within our departments. So if I can't answer the questions, they can. And again, we look forward to this being the first of hopefully an open process with a lot of dialogue. So it was actually funny. I was talking to a couple of our secretaries, and I said, I'm not sure how I'm going to start my presentation. I wasn't sure how I was going to start my presentation, but what I thought I would do would go back to my roots and kind of be a teacher and try to tell you and talk to you through our process and how we're a little bit different than the city and what sets us apart and what sets our process apart from the city. We certainly work with the city. I will talk to the mayor, talk to any council member. We will meet in small groups, forums like this, or anything you need that would give you the information you need to help you make decisions. But I thought I'd start with really what drives our budget and how we do our budget. And for those of you that don't know, if you look at the beginning of the packet that I hand out, which I think can be a good reference for you, some of it is they're the same slides that you have in the budget book we gave, but I thought it was worth giving it to you again, and I'll show it to you in context. School budgets. So we are driven by statute 10-222. And I highlighted the section. And what it says is that each Board of Education shall present basically an itemized budget that, for the ensuing year with all of the key points that are covered. And we submit it to, in this case, it's not a Board of Finance or Board of Selectmen. The authority is the mayor, and that is dictated through our city charter. We pass our budget, again, usually by mid-January. This year was a little later because I think we had a snow day. And then we turn the budget over to the mayor, and we give all of you a copy of that budget. What I have on the next page, it says the school budget, which is highlighted. It says page 87 on the bottom. That is actually taken from the interpretation of the school statute, school state statutes, which talks about the board's authority and independence in creating a budget. Again, significantly, here's the key part. Once a municipality makes its annual appropriation for educational purposes during the ensuing fiscal year, the local Board of Education may expend that appropriation by and at its discretion. Moreover, in exercising that discretion, the Board of Education may transfer funds from one line item to another, provided, of course, the total expenditure does not exceed the amount of appropriation in funds received for school purposes. Now, when we turn our budget over to the mayor, or even when you guys get it, what the recommendations that you can make are non-educational related. In other words, you can't say to me, for example, Neil, this is the textbook you have to use because it's a cheaper textbook. Those are the decisions that we would make as a Board of Education. So, and what I tell our board members is, that sounds great. We can move the money around. In reality, in essence, there's not a lot of money to move around because just like most budgets, most of it are salary benefits and fixed contractual services. So it doesn't happen a lot where we're just, every month we're moving money around. But it does give us a lot of independence. It does set our process up a little bit different. It's why normally when the mayor makes a bottom line recommendation and doesn't go line item through line item, because at the end of the day, our board goes back and then adopts an operating budget based on the total amount that's allotted to us. So I think that's important for you guys to know. And again, I apologize if I didn't say that. A lot of you were new council members last year, and I probably should have done more of an explanation last year. But again, I think it sets the stage. And again, know that we are committed to working with the mayor and the council through the process. So the next page talks about a minimum budget requirement. Minimum budget requirement is exactly what it says. And in all the municipalities, there's some discretionary. There's some discretion now, but it prohibits you from giving you less money than what you gave the year before. Now, there are some exceptions. Laws have changed recently. For example, you're exempt if you're one of the top 10 performing school districts in the state of Connecticut. If your enrollment goes down, you can adjust the minimum budget requirement. However, because West Haven is an alliance district, if you look at the next page, I again summarize the law. If you're an alliance district, the city can't appropriate any less money than they did the year before, regardless of the enrollment. And the justification of that is it makes a lot of sense. While the enrollment may go down, and ours hasn't. Ours has been fairly stable over the last few years. The needs are going up. So that justifies us, keeping at least what we were given the year before from the city. If you look at the next page, this page we always include. This is part of the budget packet, which the board got and which you received a copy of. It talks about our various grants. Talks about the general operating budget, which is what we come to you guys for. It's what we ask for your appropriation. It talks about the Alliance grant, which is we are one of the 33 Alliance school districts in the state of Connecticut. And it talks about the various title money, which is federal money. Now, I will give you some good news. Steph, you have that handout. As I said, we do the budget in, this year we did a little bit early, probably mid-November, because we knew Matt was leaving. We budgeted, I believe, about $500,000 less than what we now are anticipating from the state of Connecticut in the form of the Alliance grant. Now, don't get me wrong, we can use the money, but again, it's an area where we might be able to conserve. And Matt, explain in blue why that number is not the same, because I know that's where we talked about money is backed out of the city, so the number doesn't look the same. But it's, if you look at the total FY25, total FY26, if you look at the Alliance portion next year as opposed to this year, it's about it's almost $3 million. I think we put 2.5 million roughly.
Yeah, so the way it works.
So the way the Alliance grant works, we've been in Alliance District for, I think, 10 to 12 years
as long as it's been
this
in
point.
existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it first started, it was a standalone grant, like a Title I or a Title II. And then in about year 3 or year 4, it got combined with the ECS funding. So a portion of the Alliance grant, about $3.6 million of it, goes directly to the city to ensure that the city's ECS payments are held harmless. And then each year as it increases, that increase goes directly to the Board of Ed. So when you see the number, what was just passed out, the total Alliance grant allotment, I think for next year is about 17, a couple hundred thousand, 17.4.
17.5.
Yeah, about 17.5. 3.6 of that goes to the city. It stays with the city. The rest goes to the board for the board to spend.
So that's why the number 13 doesn't match, but we are expecting about $500,000 more. We actually use the site, the school and state finance project. That's where we get most of our numbers. In fact, one of the people, and I always forget her name, who is actually I don't want to say CEO, is a member of MARB today. In fact, I'm going to pass out something which they put out on the excess cost grant, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So the total appropriation we come to you for, or what we're asking for, is the $95 million. That's in our submitted budget to Mayor Bohr. Again, she will make a determination as to what the city can afford to give us. She'll pass it along to you, and then we will certainly have, again, a lot of dialogue as to what we can as to what we think we can do and keep the school system operating in what I would say is a pretty good fashion. In fact, for those of you that don't know, we were very proud when we did our budget and we celebrated earlier at one of our board meetings that we had 4 schools that were called schools of distinction by the state of Connecticut, based on some of the subcategories that we provide services for. And I think there was only one other district, I think it was Meriden, that had 5. So it shows that we're making inroads even with our neediest population. And again, something we're very proud of, and we think we put the money to good use. The next page is the educational cost sharing grant. I think last year we made a big, we tried to make the case, and again, I appreciate Mayor Boer hearing us. Up until last year, we hadn't received an increase from the city since 2016, and that's a long time. My feeling with that is, the city should increase their share a little bit every year so that you're not getting behind. Again, I know it's difficult, but that's a long time not to receive an increase from the municipality. Again, we've been fortunate, in the interest of full disclosure, the Alliance grant is really what has helped us survive over the last 10 to 12 years. And if you look at the districts, that West Haven is part of with the Alliance grant, they're all the big cities. And they all talk about, and again, you're hearing it now, Mayor Elliker was just up at Hartford talking about inequity and how, cities like New Haven aren't being fully funded or given the funding that they need. West Haven is in that group. We're an urban school district with a lot of needs. But again, we were grateful last year and that the mayor fully funded us. Again, no big surprise here. And again, this is what I alluded to before. If you look, 53% of our budget, just like I'm sure your budget is salary and, 22% benefits, 10% special ed tuition. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Transportation is going up, and I'm going to show you a common theme on that in a minute. And again, what we really don't have is a lot of discretionary funds when it comes to instructional supplies. Now, again, we can use some of our grants to offset that and purchase different things that we need, but relative to the city's share of the budget, that's pretty small amount. Now, the next page is salaries. That number, 51 million, is a little bit low because what we did was we used the increase in the Alliance grant to write off those salaries. If you look, that's the total raise, $2.5 million for the teacher raises next year are $2.5 million. Now, something I need to remind the city and you guys is that when I come to you to get a teacher contract approved, I'm not coming here so you can tell me how great my teachers are. I know how great my teachers are. I'm coming here to tell you, this is what I negotiated. Can you afford to pay it? It was a unanimous vote when we approved that contract. In fact, Mar approved it unanimously too, the teacher contract. And we believed it was a little bit larger than what we normally give. However, we're still not as competitive as I would like to be. We thought I took this contract negotiation as a good first step, but we've got some work to do. We lose teachers. I would say we lost a lot because we actually have a pretty good filled roster right now. So when we lose them, we replace them. We only have, I think, a couple of open jobs, and in the science area, unfortunately, that's a shortage area throughout the state of Connecticut. The state of Connecticut, the Department of Education designates shortage areas. So in areas like world language, science, special education, it's a hot market out there. And what's very unfortunate is that it's terrible, really. But if a science teacher leaves, and I got to get a teacher in front of that class, many times I've got to pay the new teacher beyond their years of experience in order to get that teacher in there. And that's not fair to the people who've been loyal to our district. And excuse me, one thing that our attorney, our board attorney, and the union's attorney, who I have respect for both of them, they're both very good at what they do, and we've got a really healthy relationship with them, is they will tell you in our negotiations that the West Haven teachers are amongst the most loyal that they see. You know, that's from both sides. That's from the board perspective. That's from the city perspective. From the union perspective. Let me also say this too. We are obligated, and we do. We send a letter every time we go into teacher negotiations to the chairman of the city council, and we invite the council to appoint a designee so that they're aware of what's going on during negotiations. So it should never be a surprise when we bring a final package to you, even though I think we do a great job of explaining what we did and why we did it. And again, we have never not done that. So again, when you consider this is what the raise is and the overall increase that I'm asking for, most of it is going to salaries, if not the teachers, the other unions as well, the paraprofessional union, our ASME non-certified work union, and you can see on the on the next page, the salary increase is. Sorry about that. And the salary is a little bit low because excluding the teachers, because we the increase, excluding the teacher increase, because we're using the grant money to offset those salaries. But if you look at it. Salaries, transportation, it's a 9% raise. When we went to MARB, we had to show them because they wanted to make sure that we bid the contract because they know West Haven has traditionally had a relationship with Winkle Bus, that we put it out to bid, and that we were able to justify it's still one of the lowest contracts around. And transportation is a huge issue throughout the state. Special education costs. We thought a 10% increase was reasonable because the outside placements where we send our kids, just send us a bill. You know, those aren't negotiable. Sometimes if you have so many kids in a place, they'll give you a little bit of a discount, but they're private facilities and they raise the price. And by the way, that's ongoing throughout the state of Connecticut. Health benefits, again, not a number that's made up. That's a number that's given to us by the city's, thank you, Nick, third-party benefit person, locked in this case. And again, that's a number that, by the way, could come back a little bit lower. In other words, we're supposed to, or I think in, last time we met, they said come back in March and we'll have a more final number for you. But that's the number that they give us. They said budget a 10% increase. And, you know, I'm not going to be surprised if it's 10%, but a lot of times it does come in a little bit lower. So there could be some savings there. In the operation of plant, Matt, we decreased it because, oh, that's right. We reduced some of the part-time cleaners that we had in the building from during COVID. They are, they're substitutes, but they also clean the buildings during the day. They used to do high touch point areas and clean the labs during the course of the day. Excuse me, while the custodians are doing things like the cafeteria and the outside and the other parts of the building. So that's the reason for that reduction. What I have for you, again, it was just a coincidence that I happened to receive this on Friday. During the course of the whole budget process, you know, I'm a member of what they call CAPS, Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendent, and there's CASBO, which is the Connecticut Association of School Business Officials. They keep sending us a master list of updates of what superintendents present, what boards of ed end up adopting and sending to the city. And if you look at the next page, and by the way, that excludes, I think a lot of the big cities haven't reported in, like New Haven. If you read about them over the weekend, they're looking for they're doing 2 budgets and one is like a 6. What's funny about, and I found this, it's not funny, but it even happened when I used to go to the MAR meetings and the Hartford Board of Education used to go up there. those districts, I don't know how you could run in deficits like that, but they run a deficit every year in Hartford. I mean, it's millions and millions of dollars. And what kind of blows me away is that they used to tell the MARB, Hartford, but New Haven's, again, in a similar situation. Well, our deficit is $20 million. But if we don't fill all of the jobs that we have that are part of the budget, it'll go down to $12 million. Well, that's okay, but if you needed the jobs, some kid is not getting an education. So it never quite made sense to me. So it's like pick and choose. Is it money or is it educating the kids? What are we here for? But again, those districts and even my organization right now, it's a lobbying group. We have paid lobbyists that work for CAPS, that work for, New Haven has a paid lobbyist, that work the legislature and go through, what the inequities are and what the needs are for districts like ours. And, hopefully some good will come out of it. And I think that's important for you guys to realize that, while we do our best guesses, until the governor signs a budget, most of our funds aren't set in stone yet. I don't think the Alliance grant's going to change. I don't think the ECS grant is going to change, but that's a lot of what's being debated right now in Hartford. And they're adopting the first year, year one of a 2-year budget. So the other thing that I do during the course of all budgets, and I bother Kevy with texts when I get them. I send them over to Kevy. These are just random. I just got them. I tried to pick towns that are similar to us. I know East Haven is an Alliance district, or at least locally near us. But regardless of the city, of the economics and whatnot, you can see, the average is 5.8%, but you can see what's driving all of, and I'm not going to go through every one of them. I thought just go through the cover part: benefits, salaries, tuition, special education. That's a common theme. They're really, it's what drove the increase that we're requesting this year, but it's happening all over the state. We're not in isolation. We're not in a bubble. Again, most of these are online. Just pick a town randomly, pick a board of education, and the superintendent's presentation is on there. So I won't go through all of them, but you could take a look at it. But I do think it's a really good reference. Now, a couple other things I want to mention before I finish, and certainly answer any questions. Steph, could you pass out that? So one of the things that you've probably heard about, even if you don't follow it closely, if you watch the news, is the excess cost grant. That's the money which offsets some of our special ed tuitions, and some of them can be upwards of $200,000. And Stefania is our director of pupil services. She can give you specific examples, which we did include in the budget packet that we gave you. But this explains what the excess cost is. Over a tuition of so much money, we get a reimbursement back from the state. Last week, the governor and the state legislature reached an agreement on about $43 million. And, from the school, state, and finance project. I have not received an official notice on this yet, and that money is for this year, so it's not part of the budget negotiations that they're currently working on now. West Haven stands to get about $550,000, but it's got to be spent this year, and that would offset tuition. So, I thought that might come up tonight, and if the extra $500,000 would do us good, well, it would, but not for the budget cycle that we're starting now. It would help us this year. And again, Steph can give you examples of, upwards of $200,000 a year kids if you wanted to see them. So that's my presentation. I hope I've given you at least a better understanding of what our process is, a better understanding of what's driving our budget. I'll be the first to say that there are certainly several unknowns, and there are possibilities. Again, the Alliance grant being one for reduction. We don't want, again, those of you who know me, and some of you have been around, I don't want more money than I need. But again, the special education hurting us, transportation hurting us, fixed cost contracts, benefits hurting, that's in the salaries. And, salaries to be competitive, to get the best, to keep the best, we had to pay a little bit more. Council was invited to participate in the negotiations. The last council unanimously approved it, unanimously approved the, MARB unanimously approved it. That's where we are right now. And again, I'm not saying that I can't work with the city to find some consolidation. In fact, we just did which I think is going to help us and the city immensely. We just did a memorandum where we're working together on payroll, which I think is really going to benefit the city, because now we're going to have a payroll team that will be able to help each other and allow some of our employees and the city's employees to go on vacation or take a sick day, which was hard at one time. So, I think that's an area of becoming more efficient. And I think there are some opportunities like that, and we're open to them, and I know the mayor is, and that's where we stand today. March 10th, 2025. Again, I tell our board it's a long process. Even after you adopt a budget, the state will still adopt their budget, and then we'll go do an operating budget. That's my update, and I'm certainly happy to, and again, if there's a question I can't answer, I'm sure somebody here can, so happy to help and answer the questions.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Tucker, you want to lead the discussion until Councilwoman Apparali gets back?
I'm sure there's a bunch of people. Would you like to? Okay. We'll start with Councilman Locks.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in tonight, and thanks for putting all this great information together. I guess my goal tonight, and I can't speak for the rest of the council, is I want to try to set expectations for the budget season. So basically what I'm going to do is the presentation that you sent previously is what I went through and scrubbed and went through that detail. There were 75 budget codes, and what I determined was of the 75 budget codes, 15 are 82 million out of your 95 proposed budget, and that represents 80. No, I take that back. No, it was 82 million, and it's 86% of your budget. So I'm going to start with those 15. I'm just going to name them, and then I'm going to go through the detail because I have a lot of questions on those items. What I did is I went and looked at percentage change from the 3 budget years that you presented, and that's what the data and the questions are based on. So the thing is, you may not be able to answer these questions tonight because it's a lot, but the expectation would be when we come and talk about the budget face-to-face, there are some options we would like you to, I personally would like you to consider. I mean, the rest of the group here can chime in. We'd like you to come to the budget during the budget stuff and talk about options and ideas and ways to sort of look at how do we mitigate a lot of these increases, because some of them are substantial, some of them are 10% or greater. So I'm just going to go through the codes real quick. I don't want to bore anybody, but the categories are salary, health benefits, tuition, transportation, operation, and plan. Those were of your 15, and yep, good chunk of your budget. The subcategories were classroom teachers, health insurance certified, tuition, special education, bus service, special education teachers, teacher aides, special area teachers, custodians, coordinators, pupil services, principals, electricity, assistant principals, clerical, central office, and maintenance. So those are your top 15 subcategories. So with that said, a lot of my questions are about that, but some are outside of that. And I'm just gonna ask them. So, the budget for tuition payments for special education students is increasing by 10% from 24-25 to 25-26, and 13.78% over 2 years. Can you tell us what the rationale is behind those sharp increases.
Yeah, there are private facilities where students are placed. In many cases, they're kids who are never going to be part of our school district.
Okay.
We move a child out into those, and we get the bill. Now, there is annual reviews. We do monitor those kids when they're outplaced, but basically to stay in the facilities, we're at the mercy of the facility. Matt would have better detail on the actual individual line items.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, a majority of those facilities are for-profit facilities.
Yep.
And a majority of the time that they're the only game in town for
Okay.
that child's
Yep.
disability. So they have the luxury of raising prices however they see fit.
Sure.
Maybe about 6 to 7 years ago, we had a facility that raised their tuition increase 26% over like a 2-year period. We had a student who actually lived in the facility, and the facility was looking to do renovations to add an extra shower or bathroom or something like that. The cost of that renovation was put on the districts. So there's really nothing to stop these organizations to raise their prices. Another thing, excess costs. I mean, it's wonderful that the state found additional money to raise the increase. However, the grant is being, even with that additional $43 million, that the grant is being, towns are being reimbursed at an all-time low, even with that
The
additional
percentage
bump.
is going down.
Yeah.
So they're funding it for West Haven. It's all based on the angelic rating of the town. With the $43 million additional, West Haven's being reimbursed about at 78.2% of the tuition that exceeds the excess cost threshold. 2 years ago, that percentage was well over 85, almost close to 90. So we're also factoring in not only the price increases, but also the decreases in other funding sources.
Okay.
The state and federal grant, the IDA grant that we receive, there was a decrease this fiscal year. Don't want to get political, but I mean, there's talks of those funds possibly disappearing, which would have a very devastating impact on not only West Haven, but probably every school district in the state. So.
Okay, so it sounds like they're for-profit organizations. Sounds like you don't have a lot of leverage.
Right.
So are there any cost-sharing opportunities available out there? Or when it comes to these for-profit organizations, how many are out there?
So Steph can answer, but let me just start by, she'll talk to you about the places. What we try to do is we do try to create programs within our schools. We have partnerships with ACES where they actually run some programs in our schools. We use ACES as far with transporting kids in several districts. But Steph can tell you about the number of schools.
So in West Haven, we're fortunate to have a continuum of services. So before we even speak of students who are outplaced, we offer pull-out support, push-in support. We have intensive interventions in place in our self-contained learning lab settings, where students are in a small teacher-student environment led by a special education teacher with paraprofessional staff. So students go through all of these interventions before they're placed in a therapeutic setting. We've decreased our numbers significantly over the years of students that are placed in an outplacement. I believe it was 1920. We had about 148 students that were outplaced. By 21-22, luckily, through a lot of hard work from our teachers and our administrative staff, we were able to keep more students in district, and it went down to 118. Shortly after the law changed, and we had to keep students up until the age of 22, where previously it was the age 21. And with that, they get to finish out the year as well. So a student could be up to age 23, an adult, with us still. So that created a bubble as well. In addition to what Matt was talking about with the significant tuition increases. But like Neil had mentioned, over the past 4 years, we've created in-district outplacements through our collaboration with ACES. So we have 2 programs right now. One is at Seth Haley School, the other is at the high school. And through those 2 programs, we're able to keep approximately 35 to 40 students in district. And like Neil had mentioned, these are $1 million kids, for sure. And I've said this in previous meetings, and it still holds true. We typically always, I hate to use the word always, but we tend to, after we exhausted every intervention that we can within the public school setting, these students require this higher level of care for social emotional purposes or for behavioral purposes. And that's why we seek out this higher level of care for these students.
But I guess what I'm just trying to get at is you have providers that are out there doing this for you, correct?
There are schools,
When
yes.
you say providers, what do you
Well, it sounds like you're...
Yeah, the schools are private facilities.
Yeah, the schools are private facilities. Okay. Okay.
But we have, over the course of 4 years or so, decreased our number of outplaced students.
Okay.
And it's always through a school-based team. So every year we reconvene. We've brought students back to district.
But you can't just start a school, is my point. They have to be on an approved...
Oh, of course. They're on an approved special education list.
Sure.
Schools.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one, again, what people can't believe this, but if a family moves to West Haven tomorrow and there are 2 kids that are currently placed at, what's the facility? Milestones, and they came from Hamden, we get the bill. You know, the kids are already placed out. Now, we would be their case managers and would be responsible for an annual review, but chances are those kids aren't coming back to the district in one of our programs.
Okay. So transportation costs, that was budget code B04 through B16. Transportation costs are increasing significantly across all categories, with special education B12 rising by 25.44% in 1 year and 36.73% over 2 years. What options do we have to renegotiate contracts? What options do we have to optimize bus routes?
Right, most of those special ed routes are bid every year, and there are very few companies that want to take these kids. I mean, they're in wheelchairs, feeding tubes.
Okay.
They're difficult.
Sure.
So there aren't a lot of companies out there. But based on who we have and where they're going, that's not part of the regular ed. That's not part of the regular Winkle bus contract.
Sure.
They're bid every year based on who and where they're going.
When's the last time you looked at an alternative?
Alternative.
Provider transportation company.
They're bid every year.
You do it every year.
Every year.
Okay.
But you know, the kids who are the students who are more severe needs that might require.
These are behavior kids too. That
sure.
Not easy to control. There may need to be another adult, you know, in addition to the driver on the bus. I mean, they're placed out. They're serious behavioral issues.
We bid them every year, but that doesn't guarantee that someone will provide us with a price to do the transportation. There's plenty of rides that companies just won't bid on, and then we kind of beg and plead to one of our providers to transport these kids, and you know, we're at the mercy of what they're gonna charge us for the route.
Okay. So that special education is one.
But I'm going to give you another good example. Steph. So let's say a student is classified as homeless.
Yep.
that could happen in a matter of day. It's an abusive household. The mother and the child have to leave the house. Well, they go to a shelter and wherever, or they have family in New London. Guess who's getting the bill and who's transporting those kids?
Yep.
You know, and those are what, about $300 a day.
$380 usually. But going back to your point, we I think within the past 5 years or so, we partner with other districts to regionalize and ride share
Okay.
for our outplacements through ACES,
Okay.
which was a great thing that they
Okay.
did. So on a run, through ACES, our set, there may be students from West Haven, there may be students from Orange, Milford, going to, Hope Academy.
Okay.
So we have looked at ways to ride share.
Okay,
also.
so your proposed budget for this year is $7 million on transportation. 1.7 is only special education. So what other options do we have, if any? That would be your contract with Winkle or whoever else you use. And I guess what I'd like to understand is what's that contract with Winkle all about? Is it multi-year? Is it single year? Is it
We're in
an
the
evergreen?
second year of a 5-year contract,
Okay, second year of a 5-year contract.
which was bid and again approved by Mark
Okay.
with all of the numbers that we
Okay.
provided them with.
Yeah, and this might be off topic, but were there increases annually in that 5-year contract?
I'm sorry?
Were there increases in that contract annually?
Yes. I think it's a 9% next year.
9% next year?
Look, and you again see what's happening around the state. But again, I would tell you, I would make the argument
how's
that
that
those are
possible?
educational decisions that.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. Here's what's happened, and it's happened again. Don't think of this as a West Haven issue. It really isn't. You're talking about since COVID, they can't get parts.
Yeah.
They can't get drivers. Well, yeah, drivers is what I was going to mention next, but they're at a shortage, at a premium. One thing that Winkle does have is he has got pretty good loyalty amongst his bus drivers. He pays them decent. They're not in a union, which is again helps him out a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, because having a local company has its advantages.
Yep.
It has some disadvantages like bells and whistles and monitoring, things like that, which I'm kind of trying to push them to get into. So we get the basic service from them, but you get what you pay for. It's one of the cheapest ones around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen.
That's in Milford now. Go ahead, Matt. Give him the Milford example.
Yeah.
This is really good. This makes us look really good.
Year one's 19.75%.
Milford, he's talking about.
Yeah, but
shame on them.
Going back to the Winkle contract, when we put it out to bid, we kind of got our hand slapped by MAR saying, we only had one provider. We think you guys should go back out to bid. We were able to show, even with the 9% increase, I know that's a sticker shock.
Yep.
That Winkle's routes or West Haven's routes were the lowest in the state.
Yeah.
Let me say this too. We actually, when Mark first looked at the contract, we went back and we made contact with some companies. I forget. I don't know if it was First Student. It was one of the bigger companies. And here's what they said: we can't touch Winkle's price. We're a big company.
Yep.
However, we can provide you with a lot more. And I'm sure they're talking about some efficiencies. Again, there are things like now that you can swipe a card so you know who gets on a bus, who gets off the bus. Kid doesn't belong on a bus. I think all things that would help us and make the routes more efficient. But it's still, we just didn't have the money to. I forget what he told us, but it was quite a bit more, significantly higher.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard this before, and it is a stretch with suppliers. But in my previous life, we would negotiate long-term contracts. We would not accept upcharges year to year. They were subject to negotiation every year. The other part of it too was, you give somebody a long-term contract, that's worth something. In other words, Winkle gets to lock in the business for 5 years. They're all done.
Let me just say,
but maybe a 2% would be legit. How about no increase? 9 is outrageous.
Here's what I can tell you about Winkle, and I'm not here to defend Craig Winkle. He's
yeah.
a pretty good
I
businessman.
know. He's a good provider.
However, there have been times when I've gone to him and said, Craig, you gotta freeze. I mean, I'll try to extend the contract. I'll try to do some things for you, you know, work with you so you're not losing out, but I need you to take a freeze. I can tell you this, I think Kevy would back me up, and so if there's any other board members here, some of the people, and some of you guys that may have been around a while, he has never said no to things like that. I mean, he really is as good as advertised. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some disadvantages with the locals, vendors. However, they are good people, and I think everybody here, all my administrators would say, we can't lose Craig. I mean, that would be the attitude. They don't know anything else.
Yeah.
But he really is a good local provider, and has in several cases during my tenure as superintendent taken freezes when the city was at some of its lowest points. So, you know, that's the way we can negotiate with him.
Okay, I'll leave that one alone. Health insurance costs, that was budget code E14, E26. Health insurance for certified employees, E14 is projected to increase by 10% in 1 year, and nearly 15% over 2 years. With non-certified employee health insurance, E26 is going up by 10% annually and nearly 20% over 2 years.
Yeah, that's the number.
What are the drivers? What are the drivers there?
Yeah, that's the projected number.
The email came out today of what the
I didn't see it.
What the final rates would be for the increase, 9.9%. So there's not much wiggle room. Lockton told us 10%, came in at 9.9.
Brian, can I also say this? One of the things that we've tried to do throughout the years, and you know, most of our bargaining groups have a pretty good understanding of this now. One of the things that's very difficult for us is the people who've retired under certain contracts and have better benefits than I'm ever going to get as a current employee of the city. And that group of people are very difficult to fit into a policy. So those are somewhat out of our control and very difficult to actually find a provider for, and it's usually a much higher rate. So those are taken into consideration as well. A lot of retired employees. Sure, I know it happens on the city as well.
Okay. I'll try to move this along. Salaries for administrative roles. Salaries for assistant principals, that's budget code C12, are increasing by 10%, while those for principals, budget code C10, are up 7.5%. What's that all about? Is it new hires? Is it expanded roles?
Those are steps. Some of them are
contractual obligations.
We bargain with them, and again, that's another contract that the certified contracts come to the city council. The non-certified don't have to. So that is it's approved by the city. I'm not making up an excuse, but you know, our administrators. It's funny. I actually have it in my folder, my budget folder. I always take out stuff. You know, our administrators, we have a very low number relative to many other districts. Again, I'm not going to put Matt on the spot with his current employer, and I'm also not going to divulge some of the salaries. But needless to say, the Milford superintendent probably makes an upwards of $40,000 or $50,000 more than me. It's the same. I'll argue it's about the same number of kids. I'll argue that this is a little more difficult district to run, but you know, we're not overpaid relative. And that, by the way, that's all information you can get through CCM or any place else that you can get comparatives and whatnot. And when we bring those contracts to you, we bring those numbers.
So the contractual salaries for middle school and high school assistant principals are going up. Am I reading this right? 7.5%.
Here's my guess.
Hold on. Contractual salaries for middle school and high school assistant principals are going up what looks like to be 10%. So when you say, I'm assuming it's a contractual obligation, does the contract read that those folks have to get that value this year in this budget cycle?
Yeah, it's contractual. Here's what I can tell you, that it's a 6-step contract.
Yep.
Prior to the highest step, it's a pretty good bump.
Yep.
Probably a little bit more, but I think our top step administrators are getting 4% raises next year, which is what the teachers, in line with the teachers are getting, and again, in line with what people across the state are getting.
Yep.
We're a little bit lower.
Yep.
Now, I can tell you what we did do is there's an additional assistant principal this year at West Haven High School. However, There was a person who was with stipends and whatnot, a teacher who ran the PPT process, a special ed person.
Yep.
I thought it was a better value because they work 40 more days during the year to take that teaching position and make it an administrative position because they would work year round. And I believe that might be the reason for the bump because there's an extra person. And one extra person in a group with about 23, 24 people is more significant than a group of 500 teachers, for example.
Okay. So the contractual salaries for middle school and high school assistant principals,
They're all online, by the
they're
way.
going. Yeah, let me finish. They're going up by 7.5%, and the contractual salaries for middle school and high school principals are going up 10%. And that has to be paid out this year according to this budget. And that's like a yes or no question. Is it yes or no? No, are all those people getting bumps by 10% this year? That's what I'm trying to get
No.
at. Okay. Okay. So there's wiggle room there.
Well, it's a contract, but I don't know of I don't know of an administrator getting more than 4 or 5% increase.
Okay.
If you're getting 5%, it's because you're on a step and you're going to the maximum step from step 5 to 6, let's say.
Okay. Thanks for that. I don't want to go crazy here, but the flat budget across 3 years. So purchase services, that has remained unchanged, 1.1 million for 3 straight years. So in my mind, there's room to negotiate on purchase services. So my question to you is, how do you?
But if I, with all due respect, that's not your job to negotiate. That's our job to negotiate. You should, that's part of the statute.
Yep.
Here's what I could tell you: purchase service, that includes the lawyers, that includes Xerox, that includes our IT. They're contracted. Lawyer might be. That's going to fluctuate based on what bargaining unit. If there's a lot of contracts up for negotiation, for example. But that's it's billable hours. It's not, there's no contract with them.
Of course, it's billable hours, and I know that.
Yeah.
It's all billable hours. So, all right, let me just go on. Do you use the Munis platform for procurement? Okay.
We don't send those out.
Okay.
So even like the Winkle contract, for example.
Yep.
That goes out through the city. The city always says to us, here's what came back. What do you recommend? There's usually dialogue when a contract of that magnitude comes out. Food service is another one that comes to mind.
So I just want to be clear on this. In my mind, I'm saying to myself, this has been steady for 3 years, no increases. So how can you not get at least a 10 to 15% reduction by collaborating with your friends here in City Hall to reduce some of those costs on purchase services? It sounds like you can't do it. It sounds like there's a statute that's blocking that.
No.
Am I right or
no? Because some of those are non-educational items.
Okay.
We've talked about that with a lot of. We have those discussions all the time.
Okay.
We think, again, my opinion, IT would be a great area to do that.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's not. It's factually correct that it's not increasing in the local budget.
Yep.
But these costs and these services are increasing year after year after year. Because we hadn't received an increase from the city since fiscal 16, 17.
Yep.
We had to use the Alliance grant and some of our other state and federal allotments that we received to offset these prices. For example, part of Vancord is paid out of the Alliance grant. Part of our security team is paid out of the Alliance grant. When we're only dealing with small increases, if any, we can't always fluctuate those prices. We have to move things that are allowable on the grant to continue the way we operate.
Yep. Okay. Can you give me any detail off the top of your head where you spend that 1.1 million? Like off the top of your head, do you know where you spend that money?
IT, legal services, Xerox, the copy center.
Okay.
I think those are the big ones.
With that said, when is the last time you sat down with the city to say, hey, here's a bundling opportunity, can we save some money? When was the last time you did that?
When was the last time the city came to me and said that? I mean, that's...
No, you're missing the point. You're missing the point.
Well, I don't think I am.
No. I think the point I'm trying to make is, obviously there's a lot of headwinds, all right? You have Marlborough site, You've had some financials with the city, issues with the city. A lot of these things are starting to really get behind us. But you just can't keep taking increases year after year after year. You have to do something about that. So that's what I'm trying to get at.
Other than last year, I haven't gotten an increase from the city since 2016, 2017.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, how do you partner with your friends at City Hall and reduce that 1.1 million?
It's a great question, but if you read the statute that I gave you,
yep.
When we submit our budget, the city can come and offer us anything like that, and we're happy to work with the city. I mean,
yep.
it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. How come it hasn't happened yet? Any idea?
Give me an area or an example.
No, I mean, we've kind of worked with the city to kind of reduce costs. I mean, you're obviously the Board of Education. These guys spend a lot of money. When have you gotten together and collaborated? I'll use an example.
Yeah.
Who's your office supply supplier? W.B. Mason.
Amazon. Get a lot.
So you use. I'm just trying to make a point. You guys use multiple office supply providers. Yeah, because we have teachers that we buy supplies. And your city uses multiple suppliers. The point I'm trying to make is, this is just an example of how are you getting together with the city to get together.
The city doesn't get our prices that we use for education supplies. There are school purchasing
yep.
Consortiums that
yep.
go out to bid
yep.
and use the buying power of all school systems to get school systems with lower prices than anybody else can get.
Yep.
I mean, if you're talking about getting together and getting things for lower prices, I'll give you a great one. For, I don't know, probably the first 10 years that I worked here, there was only one copy
Yep. Yep.
The city used all of the Board of Ed's purchasing power because...
Hold on. I want to stop you. I honestly don't care what happened in the past. No, what I'm trying to say is 2025, and what I'm suggesting is maybe you guys get together and leverage your spend to save the taxpayers' money. That's what I'm getting at. And it sounds like you're telling me you can't do it.
No, nobody said that.
Okay.
In fact, you give us the recommendations, and we're happy to work with the city. And if it's economically feasible, as long as they're non-educational, we really don't care who does the service. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
The education stuff, that's kind of our business. But
yeah.
Things like you're suggesting, I am absolutely not opposed. And by the way, we have, I want to say, a rubbish contract, right? That's the city's holds the contract, correct?
Yep.
So there are things that do happen.
Yep. That's all right. No, it sounds like status quo bias. I mean, it just sounds to me. I'm just saying personally, professionally, from what I've done in my career, I've heard this story before, and I just think it's missed opportunity. That's all I'm saying. I just think there's missed opportunities here to save money, and I think we probably are not taking advantage of it.
But we're happy to think of stuff, but again, it's part of the statute. If there are things that you feel you can make those recommendations to us, and we're very open to going with them.
Okay, so we're doing the budget in April. Are you agreeable to coming with 1 to 5 cost reduction ideas by getting together with the city, or vice versa? We're all one team to figure out how you're going to reduce cost. Are you willing to do that, or is that a no?
Yeah. No, we're willing to do it, but
okay.
Again, show me where. And again, a lot of times it's opportunity that the contract is open, the contract needs to go. Copiers is a good one. I think that's one where, we're kind of stuck with the cities. Yeah. What do we have? The Canon machines, Prism. That's a city contract.
That's our contract because the city didn't want us to be part of their contract anymore.
Yep.
Which I was trying to say.
Yeah.
The city and Board of Ed all used to be on one contract.
Yep.
So you would use the multi-million
right.
copies that the Board of Ed uses
yep.
to get the city a better rate.
Exactly. Yep.
The city didn't want to do that anymore. They went on their own. We went on our own. We didn't really lose anything from the city leaving us because they have all the copiers.
Yeah.
The city was impacted.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. That's the way it was, and that's the way it is today. When's the last time you did an analysis to say, hey, if we collaborated on copy, we could save X dollars? When was the last time that was done? How long was that?
It's only a couple of years, yeah.
Our copy system is on state bid.
Yep.
So no matter whether you have 3 or 3,000, the price is the price on a
Yep.
state bid.
Yep.
So whether we combine or we don't combine, we're going to get the same price.
Yep.
Because it's a state contract.
Right.
So we go off of
Yep.
the state contract.
Yeah.
So that's, there might be other examples. That's not a good example.
It was in the past.
So anyway, I'll give you more then. Photocopy services, $383,000 annually. Consulting services, $260,000 annually. Service contracts, $265,000 annually. Police and fire, $75,000. Those are school resources, so I don't know if I'd go near that. And like postage, office supplies, and central office supplies, and some of this other stuff, there's opportunity to leverage your spend and save money. That's the point I'm trying to make. And quite honestly, I did not know that this goes on. I thought you guys talked. I was at the City of Bridgeport for a very short period of time. It didn't work out, and I saw this. That didn't go on there. What we did is we worked with them to leverage our total spend so that we save money and the taxpayers got benefit from it. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Well, I don't know if I'd use Bridgeport as an example, but
Yep.
we're
Hey, I think I'd take that back.
I'm not taking it back. But again, we're open to that. If somebody came to us and said, Neil, be part of this bid, whatever the contract is, we're happy to do it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're opposed to that. I don't know if there's anybody could cite an example where I said, no, we want to stay separate. But it's two ways. It's communication.
Yeah.
I feel like probably the mayor and I talk 2 or 3 times a week, usually around 8:15 in the morning.
Listen, I'm going to let this go. I'm going to leave you with this. You're familiar with Munis, right? The software package, right? So you guys know where you spend your money. So if you were to look at where you spend your money in Munis annually, you would know where the opportunities are to save money. I'm just putting that out there. Munis is your ERP system. It drives your finances. It's very, very, it's a phenomenal tool. So you don't have to ask me where the opportunities are. You should be able to figure them out yourself because you're the subject matter expert for the Board of Education. That's how I feel about it.
He's not anymore.
Yep, 95. That's your proposed. Yep. 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 I mean, it's a good point because when I said earlier about the top 15, if you listened, it was all salaries, and I know that. But there are other opportunities, and it sounds like there's no appetite to really look at it.
I disagree with that.
Then I guess the question is, when we come and talk about the budget, you'll come with some
But the
ideas.
obligation, if you read the statute, is for the city to come to us and say, here are areas where we think we can save. And then I go back to the board, and the board says, yeah, Neil, that's a good idea. We approve that or whatever, go forward. That's the way, read the statute.
Yeah. I wouldn't hang my hat on the statute.
You wouldn't hang your hat on the statute.
Yeah.
That's the law.
Yeah.
Okay. But again, I wouldn't say no. I'm always open to saving money so that I could spend it on what we want to spend it for, which is educating kids.
I'm done. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Councilman.
Listen, and please, we're happy to set up individual meetings. We'll go through the line items with you. We're open to that. Sometimes, sometimes you just don't think, or unless somebody tells you, try this. Okay, that sounds like a good idea,
We also meet the opposite Mondays of
Thank you, Kebby.
I just wanted to add, we meet the opposite Monday from you guys, and you're always welcome to come to our meetings. Mackie comes very frequently, so if you have any questions, also please feel free to come anytime.
Thank you, Kebby. All set, Councilman? Councilman?
I'm all done, thank you.
Thank you.
Need a drink.
Councilwoman Hickman? Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Talking about statutes, it just reminded me. A long time ago, there were statutes requiring people to keep people in district for special education, and I think school boards were fine.
It's not statute. You're talking about least restrictive environment, which is
Exactly.
what we try to do, which is what Steph described, a process before a child is placed out. We really do our best to see if there's a program in district to keep them in
And you
district.
created them.
We create them. We maybe a child needs like the old one, although not as much anymore. It was cheaper to hire a one-on-one para, for example, if it's a behavioral issue, to keep the child in because it's cheaper than sending that child out. So, there are things that we do prior to sending them out. I think that's the last resort, but the reality of it is there's some kids who are just we can't educate.
But we haven't been fined. Wasn't there a time where we were fined for placing too many people out?
I want to say that goes back probably 25. I think I may have been the assistant superintendent at the time. It was a long time ago, or even a principal, when we were actually going through our case logs. And, that's when we started inclusion schools, where we provided extra support in the schools. Savin Rock was the first one. Some of you may remember Mr. Florio was the principal there, also in charge of pupil services. So that was an inclusion school where we didn't place kids in learning labs. We tried to keep them even in a regular classroom with extra support. So we still try to practice that. It's still more cost effective, but again, I'd welcome any of you to come to some of the learning labs at Seth Haley or Pagels and see some of the needs that some of those kids have. And we're doing our best to keep them in, but it just isn't easy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Chair.
You're welcome. Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Neil, thank you, and to everybody that you brought along tonight. Matt, I particularly want to thank you because I know that we don't employ you anymore, so you didn't have to be here, and you're giving up your Monday night. I can't promise I'm not going to have any more questions when it comes to the budget meeting in April, and I dive into this more. But
Here again, can I just say this, Chris, and I mean this? Don't wait. If you got a question, ask it. We'll try to answer it, and if I put it in writing or you call me, bring it back to everybody.
Yep.
Don't keep it to yourself
Absolutely.
either.
Just a couple of higher level questions. I'm just looking at the salary for the classroom teachers, and it appears to be flat funded. Understanding that there's contractual increases, am I correct that is being offset by the increase in the alliance funds?
Yes.
100%? Okay. And the same...
Which could go to other places, but again, that's...
But that's where you're choosing to allocate
Yes.
those monies. Is there a rhyme or reason for that, or is that just how it worked out mathematically?
Well, we have to, every year, you have to put together an application to the state for the Alliance Grant and come up with an entire educational plan.
It is. It's monitored very closely.
Okay.
We actually have the person who gave me the answer on the amount was actually the person we contacted on Friday. They had just done a review of our district in the program.
Okay. And the same rationale applies to special ed teachers?
Yeah,
is that
every teacher.
every teacher?
C16, C18, C24, and C26.
You still got it. Okay, and how about the clerical staff for the secondary schools? That is flat funded. How is that being offset?
It's just employee shifts as people move around to different.
We also have a job or two that I chose not to fill this year that I don't believe we'll need to fill going forward.
So folks are getting contractual raises, but it's being offset by either
they're
not
part
filling
of
positions
the-
or shifting
The
positions or
they're
whatnot.
ASME is a wide range of workers. It's
Mhm.
all non-certified. It includes clerical, custodial, food service.
And the same thing for elementary school? Same.
It's all the same
Same
bargaining
one.
group.
Got it. Okay. And the one thing that I'm going to complain about is the custodian line item. And the reason that I'm frustrated, and maybe I'm just misunderstood, is I thought that last year the increase was at least partially justified by the need of the additional custodians that were hired during COVID. And now I'm seeing that that line item is increasing again, but I heard that your staffing levels are going down.
No, what we did was, again, we really did do the best we could to keep the number. My goal was under 4% when I saw the first numbers that came through, because obviously we do more than one run of the budget. I said, we got to get this number down. We're going to try to keep it down below 4. So what we did was we eliminated 10 of the 20 part-time workers. Now, that hurts a little bit. It during the day, not as much, but a lot of times what happens is when guys are out, the night guys come in during the day. We use those guys as nighttime custodians to clean the buildings. So that's, again, they're not just part-time cleaners, there are substitutes as well.
Matt, I'm sorry, point of order. I'm getting word that the mic isn't picking you up. When
I'm
you
sorry.
talk.
So I think, Chris, what you're pointing out is line item C58. So those are the custodians that are employed by the West Haven Board of Education that are a member of the AFSCME bargaining unit. Their salaries are increasing. The reduction is in the D accounts, the operation of plant. That's where the reduction of the part-time cleaners who don't work for us, who work for a third-party company, is located.
Okay, that makes more sense. I think that's it for this evening. Thank you again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Mueller. Hi, Neil. Thank you for coming, and I just wanted to say that I'm really on the same page as you. You know, I want to see that the Board of Ed gets everything that they deserve, and the teachers, the paras, all the employees, including the nurses. So I was happy to hear you say that once you lose a teacher, you replace them. But this hasn't been the case with the nurses, and we really are in a crisis at this point with nursing staff. So last year, I believe you budgeted for 19 public school nurses and 4 non-public school nurses. That's a total of 23 nurses. At that time, we had 13 nurses. Now there's 12 RNs and 1 LPN. And LPN is limited in their scope of practice compared to an RN. And they're, they're spread out. We have 11 schools. Is that correct? I think it's 11 schools.
Yes, we have 9 public schools that we service.
And the two Catholic schools.
Correct,
Yeah.
yep.
But some schools need 2 nurses. Particularly, I'll make a point that the high school, for instance, has, I think, a population of 2,000 students, somewhere around there. Sure. And there are 2 nurses, which is really appropriate. But there are times that these nurses are pulled to other schools, leaving 1 nurse for 2,000. So I think that not enough is being done to recruit, hire, and retain nurses. Very important to the system.
Katie, I think one of the issues, and you were the president of the union, so you were part of the last negotiating sessions and contract that we reached. People, if you look at a school nurse's salary, even at maximum, it's 60 or 70,000, whatever it is. While that's not much, I think the advantage is you're working 180 days and whatnot. The problem is many of the young nurses, many other people, they're looking at the bottom line and they'll go work at a hospital, they'll go work at a private facility because $60,000 or $70,000 isn't enough. Again, relative 180 days, 185 days, whatever it is, 6.5, 7 hours a day. And I know you stay longer and I know you come in early, so I'm not questioning that. And I know the lunch breaks sometimes are the busiest times. But again, you're looking at a bottom line salary as opposed to what the responsibilities are. And we're having a tough time. One thing I did, just met with Jill recently, and she said, Neil, I know I have a couple of openings, but I have 3 really good candidates. Hire them all. That's what I tell her, hire them all. The problem is it's retaining them because right away they decide it's not enough money, or, they need to go get a second income or whatever it is. So it's not like we're not trying. I know I have a meeting set up with Ally, the new
Ally,
president.
yes.
I think what we're going to end up having to talk about is making sure, and again, it hasn't come up yet, and I know what the contract says, requiring one RN in a school and maybe shifting around where the high school has one RN and two LPNs or something like that, because the buildings, as you said, they need to be covered. I also think that, traditionally we've given the best we could to the private schools. They don't, frankly, they don't have the needs of a Haley or a Pagels, where we have some really needy learning lab kids. I mean, even though those schools have 300 or 400 kids, who needs a feeding tube, who needs medication at a certain time during the day, those schools could almost justify two nurses as well. We just don't have the manpower.
Yeah,
And
I
again,
understand that for sure. But if I know that during COVID we hired from agencies, so we're really I think the point is that we're really in desperate need right now. And wouldn't it? If you're budgeting for 23 and you've got 12 RNs now.
I don't know what the number is. 12 seems low, but it's definitely lower than what we budget.
It's way lower than when I started in 2019. Wouldn't it be practical then to look to an agency to get even LPNs that would, say, work alongside of an RN? So say if you have to pull...
Katie, the answer is yes. However, I also have to respect the bargaining contract, what I can and can't do, and I'm not sure I can just go to a private agency when there's a nurses union that says, if you become an employee, I got to hire, if you work for the West Haven Board of Ed, you have to be a member of that unit. Anything can be negotiated and signed off on, but as the current contract is right now, I just can't go to an agency without going to the group and saying, I'm really desperate. Can you, would you allow me to do this? And we would sign some type of memorandum of understanding that would allow me to do it.
Well, it's been done in the past. In 2020, we had I had an LPN in my office.
Yeah, but that was during COVID. We actually had extra assistance, and we were paying for it out of ESSER funds.
Mm-hmm.
Those funds no longer exist, and again, according to the contract right now, we have to have RNs.
Right, I understand that.
So I can't just go do it.
We do have an LPN though in the system, and she's
not
working
in lieu
on
of the RN.
Right, not in lieu of exactly, but they certainly can be a good support.
And just so you know, there's two registered nurses that currently sit on the Board of Ed and one that formerly sat on the Board of Ed. And we do talk about nursing and the nursing situation all the time. And obviously, as you know, there's a nationwide nursing crisis. I'm not even going to call it a shortage. It's a crisis. And unfortunately, we are not in a position to offer the money that these nurses are getting to work in a hospital and then leave a hospital and become a travel nurse or an agency nurse or in whatever capacity that they want and make 3 times the amount of money. And young nurses are not young students are not entering the profession. There are not enough clinical nursing sites for education. There's not enough spots in colleges for nurses. There are many qualified candidates that are being turned away because there's not enough educational space for them to learn. I actually bring this up in my other job as a nurse at Yale New Haven Health System, the one they pay me for. I bring this up all the time when we have leadership meetings. I'm sure Kathy has brought it up in her scope of practice. I'm sure Ann has as well. At being a nurse, like I completely support your idea, and we would be absolutely thrilled to be able to staff a nurse in every school like we feel that they need to be. So if you have ideas, we're absolutely willing to listen to them. That's all I wanted to say.
We're at one time we were pretty fortunate. We were one of the few school districts that actually had it. Like I remember I had an aunt that worked in New Haven and actually worked for the health department in New Haven, and they were assigned on a rotating basis to cover different schools on different days, which is really impossible. It's difficult. I mean, if we'll pull the nurse from St. Lawrence, for example, where again the kids, we feel like we can do it we can do it legally, but we also, those kids just don't have the health needs that those in the public schools have. But even they, they go a day or two without a nurse, they're concerned. Same with Notre Dame, We do our best not to try to keep it equal, but we also have to look at, where the highest need is.
Right. I agree. I mean, in 2019, we had quite a number of nurses to cover any, you needed a personal day. There was always a nurse to cover. My concern is that I'm at Savin Rock. I don't have a nurse that covers the entire day. So.
Yeah, no, listen,
It's a safety issue.
I don't disagree with you. And again, as a former elementary school principal who's had to give out inhalers and make sure that kids got their medicine, their ADHD medicine at lunchtime, and do whatever they need to do because they had issues.
And certainly
I don't feel. I mean, while I have to do it with, I'm trained by the nurse, and I have to sign off. And I had Sandy McCauley who made sure I knew how to do it before she would let me sign off.
And I have a medical team.
Yes.
In my school too.
So, but it's a scary feeling because I'm certainly not as qualified as a nurse to do those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Tucker?
Well, since I got called to this fight by my friend Kebby, I was invited to this fight by my long-term friend Kebby. We go way back, cheerleading days, West Haven High. Class of 84. I have to tell you, Kebby, I agree with this lady.
I agree with her too. I was not disagreeing.
I'm just saying, this is a safety issue. And you cannot put children in that situation or nurses in that situation. I agree with her. If you have vacancies, then there are funds that are available. And you don't have to have all the brand new nurses, the young nurses who are commanding a higher salary. There's a lot of, people who have retired, wisdom workers, I like to call them, who've retired and who don't want to just sit in the house, who may be interested in coming out as nurses to continue their career. There's ways in which that can be addressed, but I have to say that I agree with Katie that there shouldn't be vacancies that leave a nurse or no nurse with children who have needs that require a nurse.
Yeah, there's at least, just so you know, there is at least one for every school. But Katie is also correct that nurses get sick like everybody else. Nurses have personal days.
No, I don't doubt it.
No,
So do
I mean,
teachers.
that's when they're uncovered.
But you'd never leave a classroom uncovered with no teacher, as you shouldn't leave no nurse for children who need them.
Kathy,
Not an argument. We just disagree on this. I could see what you're saying, but I need to make the point.
We don't disagree.
Okay.
We're
justifying what you're saying, and I'm just saying.
No, I'm saying I'm not at all. I'm saying we're doing the best we can to fill the vacancies.
Okay.
In fact,
I agree.
In fact, at one time we used to have, and Katie would know this, at least one floater, which certainly took a lot of the pressure off. And now we're scrambling to make sure all of the schools are covered every day.
All right.
And to be clear, we are hiring. It is not that we are not posting the positions or not looking for people to fill the positions. We agree with you that we would love to have a space for everyone, including the floater. It's not that we are not hiring nurses. We are absolutely. So if you know any that are retired or semi-retired that want to come, I ask my friends all the time. So please feel free to put that out there.
That's the only point I wanted to make.
And I also think, too, I think you're right. The older nurses, maybe it's a retired nurse who could come in, even if they can give us a few days a week. God, again, I mentioned Sandy McCauley. Mm-hmm. She's been retired for 3 years. I don't know if she's been home 3 weeks in that time. I mean, she works just about every day. That's the other thing, too. We used to have a lot of retired nurses that we used to be able to call for substitutes. They're just not there anymore. I want you to know we will do the best we can. We believe what you believe.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. The other question that I have is in follow up to the question around Kerrigan School and what the plans are for Kerrigan, because we had the ask where we were sending a bond request out for funds that you wanted for computers and all of that. And there was a whole, discussion around the doors and the windows. And my question is, was that looked at? Because my concern was the safety of, of the doors and windows and pulling the funds away from that when there was a need to have them corrected in the beginning. So my question is like, what happened with that? Because you were going to bring someone in.
Yeah, in fact, I had a conversation with the mayor, and she said you had mentioned it.
Yeah.
I think it was a Thursday on a snow day. On Monday, I had a team come in, Spark Security, who runs our security. They brought in their window and door guy. They actually did an entire assessment. There was nothing deemed not safe. In fact, our maintenance guys were able to fix most of the issues. Actually, thinking that it might come up.
Okay.
And I thought it was passed along to you.
It wasn't. Okay, but thank you.
Yeah, I want you to know I did follow up on it, and again, our guys have corrected most of the problems. And in fact, the other thing, the mayor brought up a really good point. That's a shelter center that's used as a shelter as in case of an emergency. I know Mr. Fontana, the director of emergency service, went through all the locks and made sure all of the entrances were secure and whatnot as well.
Can we make copies of this?
Yeah, you can. Actually, I'm sorry. I thought, again, I was under the impression that it had been distributed. But
no, it wasn't. But thank you.
I was hoping it would come up because that one I knew I had the answer for.
Thought you were going to shut me up with this one, didn't you?
Right.
Thank you for that. We'll make copies and we'll share it.
I might even be able to. I have it on my computer. I might be able to get it to you too.
The other question I have is around, Kerrigan as a new school. Is the vision for it to be replaced? Is that your vision?
That
if
is
so.
That is my vision.
Okay.
There are three things that need to happen. One is the board, one is the board has to develop educational specifications. That's what drives the project.
Mm-hmm.
The other two things are on the city. The council, there are, I forget, 2 or 3 resolutions that you have to do that would agree to fund, I want to say, the entire project, not just the city share. The other thing that has to happen is the city, even if we get whatever percentage we get back, you still have to be able to go out and borrow the money. So, again, that's something that we would work really closely with the mayor, and before we brought anything to you, we would have to make sure that those things are lined up. But the council shares a big part of that responsibility. Most notably, you have to agree to fund the entire project. And again, one of the things that we talked about in the mayor and I in a previous conversation was we thought the best way to move forward and to kind of justify the project would be to do a comparison. What would it cost to put into the building? And we did this when we did West Haven High School over the next 20 years, for example, as opposed to what a new school and paying a bond off would be. So we are looking at that. We think there may even be some people that we can use on a state bid list that we might be able to contract with. We've used it's DeCarlo and a division of DeCarlo and Dahl. There's an engineer who we like. That's been through Kerrigan and can do an assessment and could probably provide us with that relatively easy. But again, I think here's the key. In order to get on a priority school list, we have until December 15th to get that application in to the state legislature. So we've got some time now to work on it. We were kind of pressed for time. We actually met with a couple of people, and the timing just didn't work out to get it on this year's priority list. The other thing that was kind of brought to our attention at the meeting when we had it was don't think about what you want now. Think about what you might need in 10 years. So in other words, look at your enrollment, look at, and this is just an example, if our elementary school enrollment's going to decrease, for example, maybe you think about building 1 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th grade middle school with specialized classrooms or certain specialized programs. Again, those are all things to be determined, and it's probably better we don't rush into it. We get what we need, and we get what's going to meet the city's needs. Again, not tomorrow, 10, 15 years from now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And
but I think we're all committed to it. It's just, there's a few steps you gotta.
Yeah, I mean that's fine, but that helps us as we think about what we're being asked, for in this budget cycle. I mean, if the goal is to have a new school and the whole thing, we have to think about the whole big picture.
Yeah, that's again, just think in terms of you're probably 6 years from September, you're looking at what the new school is.
Okay. And then my last question is around just your, I'm sure you're all listening to this national conversation that's happening about the Department of Education and the potential impacts that that can have on states.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that in mind, and as you're predicting what your budget needs may be, how does that factor in for you? Like, what are your conversations about?
Next year, there's no impact. In fact, Raffaella, who several of you know, she's done some EL presentations for us, was at a meeting on Friday, and she was told that at least Title I and the other titles are locked in for next year. Beyond that, we don't know. I'm guessing we're not going to lose money. It's going to be funneled differently. Again, I don't want to panic yet, but I think we have some time to look and see if the department is dissolved, you know, what's going to happen. But next year, we're in good shape. At least we were told that by the state. The other day.
Thank you.
How's that, Councilwoman? Thank you. Councilman Johnstone.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Neil, you having fun yet?
Listen, I think this is, you know,
I got you to smile.
I was happy. I think this is
I know it's
a
productive.
good way to break the ice and a good
Absolutely.
way to say, look, it's March. You guys have until May. I actually have beyond May because I'm going to wait, and a lot of what I'm going to do is wait and see what the governor signs, and then, you know, what I can do to make an operating budget. And, you know, listen, Brian thinks I didn't hear him, but I heard him. If there's ways to consolidate in the non-educational areas, I think we can have those discussions. Those are good things.
I promise everyone I'll be as quick as I can because I'm seeing some people nod off. I want to come at this from a different angle, open perspective. We know this budget's going to be tough. This council is going to have to claw for every penny and where it goes because of the state we're in. We can all in this room in the hallway agree on that. So here's the open perspective, which I'm putting a request to you or whoever you want to bestow it upon. What are ways we can do to make revenue? Here is my point. I'll give you the perfect example. Sports. Everyone knows I'm a big sports guy for the most part. Yes, the Super Bowl was awful. I went to bed in the third quarter. It is what it is. With that being said, we just put in a new field. We have a rare, and I've seen a lot of fields in the state with all the coaching I do. We have a rare softball turf field. We have an ice rink that half the area claims as their home ice. We have a gym that is well kept and can hold capacity. We have a swimming pool that is used for a lot of things. I'll give you an example. When I brought my 3-year-old last year for swimming lessons, I was shocked to believe that I only had to pay $50 for like 9 weeks of swimming lessons. Yes, I'm a West Haven resident, but then when I learned what other residents were paying from Milford and West Haven, it's not much more. So the question I'm asking is, do we need to dissect our facilities now that they are updated and state of the art? Are we charging enough? Are we advertising ourselves enough?
Steve, believe it or not, most of those questions need to be directed towards the park department.
Okay.
For example, the
swimming right
programs
that I know.
would be that.
Does the Board of Ed make any money on that whatsoever? Do we make any money?
I'll tell you, where we're making decent money is Mike. Mike Anquilleri oversees our facilities with the exception of the rink. The rink, you're right. We actually do very well at the rink. When I took over as superintendent, this was something I'm actually very, very, very proud of. We were losing, when losing means come out of our operating budget to subsidize the rink, around $250,000 a year.
I believe it. Oh, yeah.
We now run about a $30,000 a year profit at the rink. Now, that's pretty good, but for capital expenditures, we obviously don't have the money. That's certainly something we would have to come back to the city for. And the rink needs some work. It's 50-something years old. If you guys followed East Haven.
I was there the other night. Oh, yeah.
East Haven, actually. Our rink still looks great, but it's got some needs that need to be addressed. Could be operating more efficiently, for example. And again, what happened at East Haven? They shut down literally for 2 years. It was an emergency. It's now up and running. It's really nice. But So we no longer use Board of Ed funds to operate the rink. That's the way it was supposed to be set up originally. I can tell you, as great as it was when I was growing up and everybody said it, it never was. There was always ways the city was feeding the...
Oh, yeah, we've all heard the tales.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you, like, for example, on paper, it looks like you're running a profit, but the park rec is paying out of their budget, the Board of Ed, so much money for ice rental and whatever. So you're taking it out of one pocket and putting it in another. That doesn't happen anymore. Same with food service, by the way. We were losing about $100,000 a year in food service. And while it was controversial at the time, you know, going to Sodexo, we now have a very healthy fund balance. You know, those are two budgets which operate independently from our Board of Ed budget, unless they run a deficit, then the Board of Ed's got to make them up. Again, Mike does a really good job of managing the facilities. In my opinion, and I know Kebby feels we've had this conversation since you came on the board. Probably one of the things we bonded over most is we really want to make our facilities available and keep our facilities available to the public as much as possible, minimal expense. We don't charge when teams practice there, but Mike can tell you about some of the successes he's had since he's taken over.
First of all, to start, our gyms, I know you mentioned our gyms are extremely popular. But I'm going to tell you this now, between our teams at the high school and youth basketball, it takes off all our kids, youth basketball, whether it's boys or girls, takes up just about the entire week. Every gym we have from 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock at night to 9 o'clock at night, all youth sports. They don't pay for those services. Okay, there is no income from the Board of Ed. So if I was in the last 4 or 5 months, it's tough to rent when they're being used by our own kids. Especially at the high school where we have all our teams, and we've been very fortunate to expand our sports programs here. I know some of you know of them. That gym is used all day and all night. Those kids leave when the custodians walk out. So the gym area is not, I'm not saying it's not available, but it's very hard to squeeze outside rentals in.
Especially during the school year.
Especially during the school year. And honestly, in the summertime, when it comes to inside, nobody wants to be inside anymore. So it's a little bit harder.
Can I even mention, too,
Go ahead.
the skating rink? We looked at, because we think there's a lot more potential there. However, the like to privatize and have somebody go out and get us rentals, here's the problem. When you take West Haven youth hockey, West Haven boys hockey, West Haven girls hockey, and the only school district, I believe, probably in the state of Connecticut that offers skating classes, and said, and oh, by the way, you can't use it from 7:30 in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's just no time. So it's literally the same as what Mike is describing at the gyms.
If you want to move on to the field area, we have had some rentals. Pyrrhic Field, which is our baseball field, which was constructed, I believe, in 2003, 2004. We do have a college team that comes in and uses that facility. We used to have American Legion. Unfortunately, those baseball people in the room, unfortunately, our Legion team is no longer. So that field is available. I do have some people that inquire. The only, I won't call it a negative, but of why some places get used more than others, people are always looking for multi-fields. I don't know how many people, kids that are involved. You go up to the Sportsplex, now I could play 4 or 5 games at once.
It's like running a tournament.
Right, where we only have the one
soccer,
field.
You need 5 fields.
Correct. Yep.
You need 2 sheets of ice. You need, that's an issue with us.
I'm involved with a lot of softball also. My daughter plays travel softball. It's out there that our field's available, but again, with only one field, it's tough to draw tournaments and stuff there. But we don't say no to outside, people that want to come in. I think we're competitive. I did do some research around the state.
Competitive in terms of the price we charge?
With the price that we charge. Actually, I have had some inquiries about using our football field. Unfortunately, everybody wants everything for nothing.
Bingo.
And
exactly.
when I tell them, well, I have to put a police officer on, I have to put fire on, I have to put security on, people, they back off. Everybody wants something for nothing. And honestly, the only one that really gets something for nothing around here is our youth sports, who do, when they do come in on the weekends, they do pay a custodial fee because that's Board of Ed that we have to supply with them.
And that's
So-
even our booster clubs. Like they'll use the cafeteria for a spaghetti dinner or whatever. You got to pay for the custodian. You got to pay for the cleanup. We'll give you the facility. These are our high school kids. Mike, here's the one people that do pay though: dance recitals.
We've done real well with the auditorium. We have 3 companies now that use it. Dance recitals are expensive, and they're long, but they do pay. We have taken a lot of business from East Haven High School. I'll be honest with you. Our prices were a little bit better, probably because I knew what they were paying, and I made sure that I went a little bit below to get some business. We have a state-of-the-art auditorium. I'm sure most people have been in it, and we do pretty well with that also. But again, it's always around our own drama club, or our own chorus, or our own. So there's not as many opportunities that, a lot of people call them. I'm sorry, we have a play that week and our kids are practicing. So it's not, my point is it's not as available as people think because we always put our kids first. And then the open time goes out to rentals.
And absolutely we should. I 100% agree with that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, so there has been a cataclysmic shift, especially in Connecticut. And I'm going to use soccer as an example because that's what I do. Mm-hmm. The recs and travels are dying. And somebody 15 years ago decided, wait a minute, we're doing this all wrong as a business. I'm going to give you an example when I was in high school 20 years ago. Oh, Lord. For Premier Soccer, if you were on Premier, you were the bee's knees of your team. And I had a kid in my class. He played beachside, and this kid was phenomenal. He set the points record at our school, 73 points his senior season. But every year he had to try out. Then somewhere along the line, someone said, we're doing this business wrong. Your kid can play Premier as long. That's right. Everybody's a star.
As long as you have a checkbook.
That's right.
And by the way, we charge those people. We absolutely, if there's, seriously, if we know, oh, it's a youth league, a lot of the kids from West Haven. Yeah, but you're making a profit.
Right. That's right.
Right. We charge those.
We
Good.
charge those people.
So my point is, because they're dying, and because now the model is it's just Premier or special, whatever name they come up with, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G for the teams. You guys have already agreed. They have money. Facilities are short. I can promise you there is a high need for futsal in the state of Connecticut for summer space. If you were to advertise that gym for a futsal practice facility, you would book it all summer.
Steve, most of our summer, again, one of the things we kind of pride ourselves on, we don't pay our coaches, really, our high school coaches.
Oh, I know you're on the lower scale. I know.
On the lower side. So a lot of times what we'll let them do, we'll let them run a camp. Now, they don't even pay themselves. Usually they pay the help. They'll hire, like the high school basketball team will hire high school kids, boys and girls. They'll use whatever profits they make to buy the sweatsuits and the
right. They use it as a fundraiser.
But most of our coaches take advantage of that. Why do we like it? Because we think it's a great way to show off West Haven High School. Get them in the building, let them see what our programs are like, who our coaches are, what our facilities are. But again, even then, there's not a lot of time.
Right. I guess what I'm asking is because I know everyone wants to move on. I would just like to see if it's okay. What are we charging? Who are we competitive with? And can we be more creative with what we have? I'm not saying take away 100% of the privileges of our own kids, but I think at some point, if we have the facilities that people want, we got to start maximizing our dollars if our job is to help our taxpayers.
I think in the summertime, that would be the ideal time because that is a downtime for a lot of the youth sports. Our kids are pretty much outside as it is, but if gym space is what was looking for, again, custodians leave at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, we'd have to come up, we'd have to put security on, But absolutely, those are available at that time, at night, especially at night, no question.
Okay.
Most of those, like Steve, you know, I'm very involved, as is Joe Morrell. We're on the CIAC hockey committee.
Yep.
We're dying right now. It's the same thing in there. Kids aren't playing high school sports. Why? Because they're all going to play these premier leagues. We're looking up ways to. I think it's a trend all over the place. In fact, we're hearing stories, and Mike's been somewhat involved. Like states don't offer high school hockey anymore, for example, because there's just too many other places to play.
Yep.
And again, parents will shell out because here's the opportunity to go make, your kid's going to, sign with the Rangers.
The
tomorrow.
Division I dream.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're very familiar with that.
Okay.
And we don't disagree with you. And again, we do charge those. We
Absolutely.
charge those people. In fact, in the spring we do okay with.
Yeah, we do okay in the spring. Again, it is around the high school teams
Once the
first.
high school team
So-
ends, that's when
Okay.
that starts.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. If you can get us those numbers,
Yeah.
I would appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Wanna go? Councilwoman Callahan?
Well, we could stay till brunch if we want now.
I'm good.
I want to say thank you for coming in. This was a big help, and to kind of, I think you have a great idea that we all come together and meeting of the minds. And there was just two quick questions. One was to back up what we talked about with Kerrigan, and I know that you had the doors and windows looked at. And when we were first asked for that money, that included the asbestos. Was that also included in that report?
No, that's just that was a security report.
Okay. So because that ask for that money was for the doors, windows, and asbestos.
Well, there would be some asbestos removal. I'm sure there would be.
Oh, so that was
Or PCBs.
included with the doors and the windows. That asbestos wasn't a separate.
No, it would be part of that. It would be part of a doors and windows project. You'd
Oh,
certainly
okay.
have to do
I
the
thought it was a
testing.
separate.
You would definitely have to test. You
No,
wouldn't-
I know that,
Yeah.
but I just thought when.
No, it would be included.
So it wasn't like a separate, like just floors or something. Okay, that's great.
No, and and let me just say this too. I was thinking about this because a couple of weeks ago, it was the real cold Monday. It was the Monday we were off. The Monday and Tuesday we were off, and I went to Kerrigan to go, check out a small project that we're doing, and I was literally walking around, and you put your hand on the window, it's cold. I think the rationale is not that they're not safe, but they're anything but efficient. They're single pane glass. The doors you can see, they're not sealed real well, which we can do some of that, but that's really the impetus of making those changes, making the building more efficient.
Right. So that was.
And
just,
I apologize if I wasn't clear on that.
It was just a question I had. So
No,
I'm
no,
glad
no,
that you
no. But
clarified
I should have
that.
made that clear.
But so when we first allocated that money, it was for that particular project. But you feel in your heart it's more important to take the money from that and then go for the computers, or that's more an immediate. So to
I
speak.
do, and I think if we did do the study that I discussed with the mayor and I mentioned to you guys earlier, again, what I think you're going to find is that it's not worth putting the money into that building, because what's it going to cost you over the next 20 years to make whatever repairs you're going to have to make? And then, oh, by the way, that's going to come off the bottom line of your grant. So your percentage of your reimbursement is going to go down, because what we put in for those numbers is the city share, because those are reimbursable projects by the state.
Okay.
So if they gave us money to offset some of the cost, they're not going to give you the full amount on a new building.
Right, correct. Second thing, and I'll be really fast, was to just talk about what Mr. Johnstone talked about really super fast. Is there somebody, and I wish Mike was still here, maybe he is there somebody in your realm or Park Rec that oversees all of the sports to reach out and maybe do some kind of survey or where we could bring more money into the city? And I ask that too because I'm an ice skater. I grew up in West Haven skating, and I was fortunate enough to go all the way to nationals. But to look back now, there's no skating for figure skaters. There's no time. So you have learn to skate programs, which is wonderful, but then there's nowhere to filter these kids from that learn to skate program unless they're going into
Yeah,
hockey.
I think the problem with it's all time. It's
Exactly.
do we have the time? And
Right.
one of the things that the reason we do fairly well at the Bennett rink when we added locker rooms, because that's another thing too. Like
Right.
teams constantly say, "Well, we'll come to West Haven if you can give us a private locker." That's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's between West Haven Youth Hockey, University of New Haven, who's we got word might be looking at Northford because again they can offer them locker. Notre Dame, Amity. There's just not a lot of time, and that's your guaranteed money. So
I know it is for sure, and we have one sheet of ice. I get it.
Yeah.
It's just
so you know the one sheet of ice problem too.
I do, but it was all the way up until just a couple of years ago that we at least had an hour to allocate these kids from that program into like introduction to skating. And I coach in a lot of different rinks in Connecticut, and it's unfortunate that I can't bring my kids to West Haven and coach an hour.
I wouldn't rule it out.
skating.
Like when do you do it? I don't. It's not really the time or place.
No,
but if there's
exactly,
times,
and a lot of these rinks have 2 and 3 sheets.
we'll take
of
your
ice.
money. If we can. If we can't.
Absolutely. But like again, Mike had said maybe when hockey season ends, or we could filter in.
Yeah. We take
that little bit
one of the
time.
things that we're looking at, and again, I don't want to get too crazy. Is there is some capital money in the money you just bonded for the rink, and then there's some next year. One of the problems we have is the condensers and the chillers are so out to date.
Right.
I'm sure you've been in the Bennett rink when it's warm outside and there's steam and you got to skate around fast to make the steam go away. So if we can operate it longer, a longer period of time, spring is when, again, Steve, that's when everybody's going to do their training so they can make the elite teams and do whatever in the private lessons and those kinds of things. But that was when we would be able to do things like figure skating and whatnot.
Right, but I just think like what Steve said too is that if we could get somebody, whether it's Mike or whoever, to look at all the programs, because I really do feel like you said there's a lot of potential for some income to come into our city, and also brings new people in, and then they'll spend money at the restaurants and go to the beach and a lot of things. So I won't. Keep
No. And I'll just end with one thing. Mike's kids played sports. Steve obviously knows. My son did there's nothing that West Haven doesn't have other than that second sheet of ice, because you go to these tournaments, you're playing 4 games in 2 days. It's a strip like the Post Road. You're staying in a decent hotel, and you're eating at the restaurants, and it's a pretty good deal. There's absolutely potential. We actually looked at one time for us, if we can get a second sheet of ice, that would be a game changer. And here's the other thing too. We looked into this. It doesn't cost twice as much money to run 2 sheets of ice because you're all running off the same compressors and things like that. So there's a lot of potential if that were to ever happen to make more money. But
but I think it's a good idea. I think that we can all come together with that and maybe come with up with
and that's something the board would absolutely, there are policies out there. A lot of school districts have policies with their facilities based on you're in a category. Like if you're A and you're a West Haven youth nonprofit sport, this is your rate. If you're mostly West Haven kids, but for profit this. If you're just a travel team, then it's the highest rate. There are different policies available out there.
Right. No, I know there's a lot of options, and I'll leave you with this, but like in Northford, one of the few rinks, they do have 4 sheets of ice.
But no bleachers in the parking
there's
stinks.
4 bleachers, but but they have, what they did was they used a program where on the figure skating ice, they allocate the bullpens for us to coach our conditioning. I do the hockey kids. So we have hockey and we have figure skating on that same hour. So
used
you
to
max
do that.
out
You must know Missy Tushoff. She used to do it.
Yeah, I skated with her.
Yeah, she used to do it.
Anyway, all right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Unfortunately, you learn these things. You don't want to. You never think you're going to know these things and learn them. But over the years, you start. I can run a hockey rink when I retire. I never thought I would. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mayor Bohr? Sure. Councilman Vargo?
Thank you, Neil. I found this very helpful, this exchange. I went into this meeting with some assumptions that you have corrected, so thank you for this. I think where my head is at and what I'm struggling with is the problem is that the Board of Ed budget is such a high percentage of the city's aggregate budget. So even though it seems modest, 3.8% increase, that's $3.5 million that we need to find and that the mayor needs to find. and with our commitment to try to do best for the taxpayers, to not have them shoulder that burden, with this reval that came out and everybody getting blown up over that, try to make sure that taxes stay stable. I think that's just where some of our anxieties are coming. My question, and I don't want an answer tonight, I'd actually like to discuss this in April, is if the council can't find $3.5 million, what does that mean? And I don't want that answer tonight, but what happens if we can't do it?
It's a good question. And Chris, let me say this, and the mayor actually disagrees with me with this. You know, I sat, believe it or not, and you probably a picture around here. 40 years ago, I sat in the chairs. What are your chairs there? And I was still in college, going to school to be a teacher. And there were a lot of older gentlemen at the time who struggled with the same issue. I don't think that that's necessarily changed. You know, people really believe in their teachers. They really believe in education. It's an expensive proposition. One of the things that I really wanted to raise to you tonight was, again, don't look at West Haven just as your job is to represent West Haven, but you're certainly not unique and you're certainly not alone. These are the things that are been discussed for 40 years in West Haven, currently being discussed in every town and city in the state of Connecticut. They are changing state laws to make it easier to work closely with the city, as Brian alluded to. Again, you know, nobody disagrees with what he's saying. You know, just show me some examples, or if you can point something out and say, here's a way to do it. We're not against that. I do have some ideas. You know, this is what I do for a living. And, you know, my job is to go back to the board once I get a number and say, here's what I think we can do. You know, here's where I think we can cut. My job is to make sure we keep the integrity of our educational programs in place. However, it's also important to make sure the facilities are safe, that we have the support we need, the nurses in place. I mean, you know, those are things we're going to have. I'll give you just one funny story. I don't know. Maybe Dorinda, you may remember Mr. Majorano. He was the superintendent of schools when we were in high school, and he was a really tough businessman. And Al Majorano, yeah. And it was when I became superintendent. His daughter Marianne and I were pretty good friends. We used to go out to lunch every year, and he used to like to go out during budget season. And he'd tell me, "Now, Neil, did you tell them this year if they don't give you your money, you're going to plant tomatoes in the pool?" And you know, really old school thinking. And again, I don't like putting kids in that position, or you know, taking programs away, because you know, I think that, you know, anybody could go to school, anybody could go to a math class, and I think we have good math classes and great academic programs. But I think the thing that makes us good are the facilities, which you guys and our board has invested in, are the extracurriculars that we do, the quality of the coaches that we give to our kids, the drama programs, the fine arts programs. So those are like not even on my radar, but again, those are the things that, you know, you gotta rile them up. You gotta really make everybody think that these are the things that you're capable of doing, and that's just never been my style. You know, it's just not. The other thing he said to me, actually, when I was before I was a teacher, I was a council member. I won't say his name, but he was a really old guy, and he had been around forever, and he was a legend in West Haven, sitting on the council. And he looked at Majorano and he said, can you live with, if we took $1 million off your budget, could you live with it? And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Mr. Councilman, I could live with it. Can you? So they're the decisions that we're not going to make. The Board of Ed, you're not going to make. We're going to make them together, and we're going to do it in he said it in a mean way and was back and forth saying, I'm saying it is that we're all going to make those decisions, but we're going to do it by communicating and talking to each other along the way and making the right decisions.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Councilwoman Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just have a quick question, So I'm looking through this. It says what's happening around the state, the average salaries. These are being these, this is right around our area.
The requested increases.
Yeah.
N-
So,
not salaries. Yeah.
Yeah, or, I'm sorry, requested increases. Now, aren't we usually, or do we stop comparing ourselves to the DRJ?
Yeah, you know what? I tried to get some of our. I know East Haven is an alliance district. A lot of the DERGs. In fact, I could forward you the email as I get them. Most of them weren't in, but again, most of them were higher. You know, they're the urban cities where they actually put in higher increases, believe it or not, than some of the smaller communities. In fact, a lot of the smaller school districts and smaller communities, they put in less because they're going to referendum and they're not going to pass.
Yeah,
if they put in too much money.
I just wondered if we were.
Those are random. I really
Right.
didn't look, but I mean, I have the entire sheet. It was like 30 pages. So I said, I'm not going to copy this and I'll just give you the average.
Well, thank you for that. Okay, thank you.
Sorry. If you want them though, as I get them, I'll give them to you. If there's, if I come across and you say, Neil, what do you have? Any new ones or?
Well, just the DERG, right?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mayor Barr?
Where to start? So I usually like to try to round out or answer some questions that came up, and then have a couple of my own. Just on Carrigan, just a reminder, that is how the whole boiler situation started. We had the boiler situation, but then on my desk I got, $2 million for this, $4 million for that, $3 million for this, and it was about $16 million at that time. And that's when I called Neil and said, how much does it cost to build a new school? Maybe we need to take a look at it. And that's why we put some of those projects on hold. So we really need to do our homework and see, because we need to demonstrate to the public why we would justify a brand new school. We need to show, what it is costing us to run an inefficient school. So there's that. On the facilities, Steve, I had those same questions, and Neil and I talked about it. We have a lot of these great facilities. Are we charging? We certainly don't want to charge our own youth, because we talk about investing in our youth all the time. We got to put our money where our mouth is. But as a reminder, that's one of the reasons why we're doing Malloy School gym, because the gym spacing at all of our other gyms are at a premium. So you can't get a gym at night during the week. So when we build the addition at Malloy School, that is one of the reasons we talked about, so that there is more gym space. And maybe we could charge some people. As far as the nursing, I'm certainly respectful of the contract. But when there's a national crisis and it is critical, we have an FQHC down the street, a brand new FQHC, Cornell Health Scott was Hill Health. Cornell Scott. I don't know what available services they have, but they're certainly familiar with, our community. They built.
We work with them.
Okay, because they built a new facility in the center of town to be able to help our families. So that's an opportunity as well. So going back to the overall budget, yes, I think. Certainly, I served on the Board of Ed for 4 years. I have been a great advocate for education. We fully funded for the first time education last year. 3.5 is a tough nut, though. And I do think that our residents understand the value of education, as do we understand the value of education. But we also have to balance that with our police budget, our fire budget, our youth services budget, our health budget. And we have a lot of high requests. So we are going to do the best that we can to do that. But just a couple of questions. So I think that you had put in a $2.5 million ECS estimated increase, correct?
Yes, but what I handed out tonight was the latest number. It's
right. So the governor's is 2.9.
Right.
So that's 500,000 right off the top.
Right. I said that today when I came.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I think it got a little lost, so I'm just.
I don't think it got lost. I handed everybody this. You got the sheet.
You all got that. No, I'm just recapping because I want.
Okay, I didn't want you to think I was trying to hide the 500,000.
No, I heard you hand it out. But I'm not sure if everyone knows those are the governor's numbers that hopefully don't change, right? Because now the General Assembly is going to vote on that budget. It could go up, it could go down. but 500,000 can come off the top because we're getting more ECS than was estimated. And then the special education that you passed out, West Haven is slated to get 500,000 from special education. So the ECS additional funding plus the special education, now we're taking $1 million off the top.
No, that has to be spent this year.
Oh, it has to be spent this year.
But it doesn't mean we're not going to get it next year, because I think the original amount was 27, wasn't it?
I thought that they said that $40 million was this year, and it was going to be matched next year. Did you get that information? I did not see that. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So we need that clarification because that's pretty big.
I've been
not from you. I mean the state.
During, I actually came in yesterday. I tried my best to, number one, determine that the 500,000 definitely had to be spent this year, and to what that meant going forward, because I think originally the governor proposed that he started increasing ECS was 27.
Yeah, so just not to go on and on, but just a little bit about excess cost. The way that it works is every school system in the state submits a report called the SEECG about four times a year. And when you have students who qualify for excess cost, all the expenses are pooled into one grant allocation at the state level. Historically, that has been funded at $180 million at the state level, year after year after year. Unfortunately, the cost of the kids who qualify for this is starting to be in excess of $240 million. So when that happens, the reimbursement levels continue to drop. They're done by angelic rating. I think it's grouped from 1 to 68, 68 to 114, 115 to 169. Based on that, it's funded at a different reimbursement rate. So while the $40 million was great, it's still not funding at what districts are incurring for expenses. And as these tuitions continue to raise, if the $40 million doesn't stay consistent, the reimbursement rate is going to continue to drop year after year after year. So although when you put a budget together, you do rely on somewhat of an excess cost reimbursement, it's definitely a moving target, and it's not something that you could guarantee that you're going to get. Like, I think West Haven's getting 2.9 this year. That's not guaranteed. I think last year we were up around 3.4 in excess cost reimbursement. So it's continuing to decline, even though our expenditures and the students who qualify for excess costs continue to increase.
But again, I think the simple point is that the money allocated in the special 40 million or 43 million, I think it is, I think there's 3 million for some other costs, have to be spent this year. I thought, and again, certainly there's time to look into this, that the governor had originally proposed increasing it for 27. I don't know the status of 26. I'm going to, again, terrible assumption, but I'm going to assume that the money could be there next year too, and then yeah, we might be able to look at that and decrease the amount.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so these are big numbers we got to clarify. And if we're getting the 500,000 in this year, then you're going to be under budget by 500,000, right? Somewhat. So is there
no, because the money again.
Are you running on budget? Are you on budget this year? Are you on budget this year? Well,
listen.
I know, but you're answering questions tonight. And
well, he put the budget together.
Okay, so are we on budget this year? Okay, so if you're getting 500,000 this year, that means you're going to be under budget by 500,000.
Yeah, especially I think Matt's point was it's a little bit, that's a risky line item to play with. Not to say that we couldn't have the money, but I think many cases we've taken the money and and moved it over when we were.
Do you mind just coming up to the podium if you speak, just so that we have you on record? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Just because how volatile special ed is, tuition, transportation, services, it'd be difficult to guarantee that just because we got an additional $500,000 that we could guarantee a $500,000.
I understand that, but you only have 4 months left in the budget, right? Anything could happen, but anything could happen any year, right? So if you're running on track, you only have 4 months left, and you're getting an additional 500,000 for special ed this year. All I'm trying to get at is if that line is going to be under budget, right? Foreseeing maybe nothing happens, then is there another line item? So let's say you're under budget in special education, right? Weighing them out, does that mean there's something you could do in the operation of the plant? Like you can buy supplies, you can do something else to stay in budget to offset that under budget. See what I'm saying?
There's the potential. I think
To impact next year by.
I wouldn't say no. The potential is there, but
Okay.
again, I wouldn't guarantee it. A lot of those bills come in when too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the additional services might be needed throughout the next 4 months. Even might get hit with a high health insurance claim.
We have that on the city. We have that on the city too.
It's the same.
Yep.
We're all dealing with the same types of things.
Listen, if we don't have to spend the money, we're not going to. But I think the promise.
Oh no, we should spend it.
What?
We should spend it.
We should spend it. And if I don't spend it, I got to give it back to you. And I've done that before. I'm not against that. I mean, I've turned back. For those of you that don't know,
I'm just trying to get at is we're getting this money we didn't expect. Is there something we could do let me finish. Is there something we could do in this fiscal year that will help us in the next fiscal year? That's all I'm asking. If we're getting 500,000 we didn't expect, can we do something else?
So are you asking if come June we see that we have a surplus, are there things we could purchase with this money to get us ahead for the next fiscal year?
Yes.
I would.
Yes. Okay, that's good. Okay, so that might be likely that we could do that. Thank you. And then my other question is, almost everything I know is contractual, right? The salary increases, the transportation is the bus contract. For the special education, we know the costs are rising. We understand there's a high need in our district, and it's very expensive. How did you come up with the 900,000? Is there a formula that was used? How did we go from 9 million to 9,900,000?
10% increase.
Okay, so you just use it
Based on-
10%.
Based on the increases that we've received from our outplacements.
Okay.
About an
Okay.
average.
And that's running on track this year, the 9 million budget to actual.
Afterwards, they come in July normally. Yeah, the bills come in July, and again, like Matt said, there could be increased services on a child who's placed out or whatever.
Does the Board of Ed get a budget to actual every month, like we do on the city side? You do? You're getting your steps in.
It's not set every month, but just about every month, somebody from central office will come and update us on where we stand with our budget.
And we do transfers twice a year or 4 times a year.
Much needed.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you said Lockton's going to give us the health benefits number.
You're going to get the same number we got, yeah. And Matt says he got it today.
Oh, okay. So you already got yours today? Because
I didn't see it. I didn't see Lockton, but I don't know who they use.
I could forward you the email, both of you.
Do you use Lockton?
No, this is from the state.
Oh, it's the state plan.
Partnership plan. It's a 9.9% increase.
Okay.
That's the final rate.
Is that everything that goes into health benefits line item, though? I mean, you wouldn't take a 9% over the 19 million, or there are other things in here?
Other things. So
There's
that's
other things
health-
in there.
health insurance and fixed costs. So that's
Right.
Employer tax.
So workman's comp.
Property and liability insurance, workman's compensation,
Mm-hmm.
unemployment compensation.
Mhm.
So it's a group of accounts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's something we do together. No, I meant workers' comp too. We do that together. And then let's see, so with Washington School, so are these schools, because they're more efficient, lowering our costs for utilities? Or is it because, like, how is the impact of a new school versus these old schools helping us with our energy costs?
They're definitely more efficient. I don't know that we save money because they are air conditioned. And that was the claim, God, how many years ago when we first started the high school project? I'm not exactly sure that we're saving money, but it is a more efficient operation, obviously, because everything's newer.
Okay.
But I don't think we're.
All right. We're not running the AC.
No.
The hottest months, probably June.
Well,
So-
the windows stay closed. Remember, part of the building is that you can't open the windows, so it's always recycling the air. It's fresh air.
So, for the high school, for an example, there's many more HVAC units, mechanical units. It's AC'd. However, with the solar systems that are on the roof, it helps mitigate the large increases. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily saving, but we're kind of holding the line.
Kind of washes.
Yeah.
Have we done a utilities audit of all of our buildings?
Well, we've done a lot of the efficiency studies, and we've done a lot of the lighting and the we've taken advantage of the UI programs that are offered out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Matt, did you think you were going to come back? You can run, but you can't hide. Okay, so you know what? I will call you with other questions that I have. Just one last one. Chris said, well, we don't need an answer tonight if, we were to adjust this budget, but my number comes out before your number comes out, right? So, when you first provided the budget, you had said, if we have to make adjustments, we will work together. And you indicated if we have to make adjustments, it's not going to impact the teachers. Is that hold true?
If there's a couple of I don't believe we're looking at any kind of a layoff or anything like that.
Okay.
There's a couple of things that happen now, like which is an advantage, helps our administrators out, where we pay them additional coverage to do lunch duty, for example. That started during ESSER and was funded last year through the budget you recommended. We wouldn't save all that money because we'd have to hire more lunch aides, and we probably wouldn't get as good a product. We'd save a little bit of money. So, but I think the things that I would look at first are what was funded by ESSER that we took on last year that we probably could eliminate and wouldn't affect education programming that at all.
Okay. That's important to know. So when we're making decisions, right, we want to make reasonable adjustments, but we want to know what would be impacted. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think there's a list of what you took out, what the city took out, what we took on through your funding last year. If it's not in this budget book, it's definitely in last one, but I can get you that list.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, then I think you and I could just get together with any other, questions, or Kebby, or we could just. But I think this has been very helpful. I know that you said this is unusual, the timing, right? Typically you go after, but this is helpful for me personally, right? As I'm working on these numbers, and I think it helps you to get ahead of the game, right? So now when you go into your budget deliberations, I meet with every department in drafting my budget. And then I provide it to the council, and then the council meets with every department. So it's quite an elaborate process compared to prior years. So I think this has been beneficial. And Fernando, thank you for sitting. You guys better vote for Style School.
If you wanted to do it.
Styles back. There you go.
That one's getting knocked.
We're going to knock it down and build new, though. It's easy to convert.
Well, you got the whole. It's easy because there's a lot of land in the back.
And thank you for.
But may be helpful. You know, this is a regular council meeting, so I know you guys got other business and, you know, you can't focus, but an off-night meeting might be more beneficial, you know, just as a suggestion.
Yeah, well, this is all kind of tied in with the audit and style school. And just one last question, Rafaela, just a number. You don't have to get up. How many
1460.
How many languages do we have?
Oh, I mean, that's a number of kids.
Can you just come up to?
Oh.
So 2 answers. First, we had 1434 total count as of January 20th. As of February 28th, we have 1464. We have 46 different languages. Today, I was in central office downstairs at a family that was registering with 6 refugee kids and a family that was registering with 2 kids from an Asian country, Bangladesh, I think. So,
Okay. And I only wanted you to say those numbers because between that and our very high population of high needs students, West Haven has a heavier lift for our educators. And I want to make sure I thank everybody for coming tonight. And I want to make sure I thank on behalf of everyone here for everything you all do to educate the children in our community. We know how valuable you are, and we truly appreciate it. And we don't get to say it enough. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bor. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Neil, and to Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, and thank you to the Board of Ed for coming tonight as well. Chairman. Yes, please. Yeah. The time is now 10:31. I'm losing my mind. And your Committee on Finance is now closed.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who showed up tonight. Moving on to public lands, Chairman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman. The time is now 10:31, and your Committee on Public Lands is now in session. Members present, Councilman Locks, Councilwoman Callahan, Councilman Vargo, Councilman Johnstone, myself acting as chair. We have before us tonight Communication C from February 24, 2025 agenda from Stephen Fontana, Director of Economic Development, regarding approval of the purchase and sale agreement with Ideal Group LLC for the sale of city-owned property located at 561 Main Street, also known as Stiles School. I'd like to make a motion to bring this out favorably.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Committee on Public Lands is now closed at 10:32.
Thank you very much. We will reconvene the whole council at 10:33. Next up, we have unfinished business. Any unfinished business? Seeing none, on to committee reports. Will the clerk please read Communication A, overpayment of refunds into the record? The Style School? Sure. Yeah, I don't mind.
Florian, Genshin, Fernando, we are so happy you're here. I can't speak for these people. We are thrilled you're here. I am thrilled you're here. You don't know how happy I am. So I did do a drive-by by St. Aidan's, and it looks great. I went on House. You're probably familiar with that app. But, yeah, you did the Yale Hockey House, and you repurposed everything. Oh, yeah. But it was great. And let me tell you, you repurposed a lot of stuff there, which I thought was great. But drive around the town, there's a lot more. So I'm thrilled you're here. And, you guys look like a great outfit, and we're excited. Thank you.
Thank you. I will have the clerk read Communication A, overpayment of refunds into the record.
Communication A from a tax collector regarding overpayment refunds for March 2025, which will be filed with tonight's minutes.
Thank you kindly. And the only one we have tonight is Councilman Donovan, Public Lands.
Thank you, Chairman. To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Public Lands, to whom was referred the matter of Communication C from the February 24, 2025 agenda from Steve Fontana, Director of Economic Development, regarding approval of the purchase and sale agreement with Ideal Group LLC for the sale of city-owned property located at 561 Main Street, also known as Stiles School. Reports that the committee met on the 10th day of March 2025 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved that the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves and authorizes the City of West Haven to enter into purchase and sale agreement with Ideal Group LLC for the sale of the city-owned property, real property known as 561 Main Street, West Haven, Connecticut, which purchase and sale agreement shall be substantial and material compliance with the draft attached hereto as Exhibit A, and made a part hereof by reference, and further resolved, Dorinda K. Borer, as mayor of the City of West Haven, is authorized to directed to execute and deliver any and all documents related to this resolution on behalf of the City of West Haven, and to do and perform all acts and things which she deems be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents, including but not limited to executing and delivering all agreements, documents contemplated by such documents, and further resolved that such approval and authorization conferred hereby is contingent upon approval by the Municipal Accountability Review Board, also known as MARB. And I'm done.
Okay, I'll go with that. I have a motion to approve a matter regarding the approval of the purchase and sale agreement with Ideal Group LLC for the
Motion.
sale of
Second.
city-owned property located at 561 Main Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
I actually do have one thing. I'm
Absolutely.
sorry, I know it's been a very long meeting, but more than 20 years ago, I was one of two people to vote no when I was on the Board of Education to close Stiles School as an elementary school. But I have to say, we are so happy that it's going to be repurposed, and thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Vargo.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that South Schools is in my district, and I'm thrilled that you are interested in that building, and I look forward to seeing your vision come to fruition after touring the building with the mayor and Councilman Donovan and realizing what the costs are. I'm very excited for what you're doing. I think it's going to be great for the area, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck, and thank you.
Any other discussion?
I'd just like to say it's almost 11 o'clock. And thank you so much for being so patient. Yeah, right. Thank you.
Any other Councilwoman Callahan?
Well, let's just all say something. I'd like to thank you too, and thank you for staying till the end. Are they apartments or condos? I know I asked, but I don't. Apartments. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. We look forward to it.
Any other discussion? All right, in that case, what they all said from me, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to council liaison reports. I think I'll start off. I'll start off tonight. I just want to say the last MARB meeting that we had, I just want to commend the mayor on the pushing back that she had did with MARB to let them know what her point was, and that we've done the things that need to be done to get out of MARB, and that the goalpost needs to stay where it is so that we can meet that. And we appreciate their efforts, but we know that we're now on firm footing to move on. So I just wanted to commend. I won't get into all the details of what happened in the meeting. It's just that I really feel like they were ready to say, hey, we'll look at this next year. And the mayor did what she had to do to say, we need you to look at this now. Any other liaison reports?
It's exhausting.
Councilman Donovan.
Yeah, just quick. The P&Z, their meeting is canceled tomorrow, so I know the Kelsey will be on the following meeting agenda. So.
Okay. Councilwoman Garthwaite, and then.
Real quick, don't forget bottle sort Saturday, 9 o'clock. Also, West Haven Police K-9 unit came in third, and they were granted $3,000 from the Hometown Foundation. That's it.
Fantastic. Councilwoman Callahan?
This is also, I'm the liaison to the fire department, and we usually meet tomorrow. It's postponed till Wednesday, following Wednesday. Thank you.
Any other liaison reports? Councilman Johnstone?
Thank you, Chairman. Last meeting, we were still at 118 officers for the police. We've had 3 return from injury, so we are now at 103 operating. I know I've asked this before, and I know everybody's time is precious. Please, 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 for my fellow council members, to get a better perspective on what goes on. And I thought about saying this, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. Not only council members, but even a MARB member, go on a ride along. You can learn so much of the stress, the anxiety, and everything in between that goes in performing a normal traffic stop. You would not believe, I've been on probably 11 or 12 now in my council time in 3 years. Go on one. Your eyes will be opened so wide. Things go on that, you know what, you sit there and go, I am really blessed in my neighborhood. You really do. And I'm speaking that from the 10th. You really do. You sit there and go, I'm so glad I yell at my kid for something. I can't believe someone else's kid did that. The stuff you witness is the real world out there. And you will get a better appreciation of what goes in the job. So I challenge everybody in this room and the ones who are available watching to be respectful. You would be amazed on how your perspective changes. That's my report. Thank you, Chairman.
Perfect. Any other liaison reports? Was anybody else wondering what Neil gave Matt to be here and if it was enough? That's just me? Okay. Any new business? No new business? Oh, one.
I just have a couple little things. We had a big cleanup on Peck Avenue, and want to say thanks to Sandy Point Neighborhood Association President Kathy Hebert and the Treasurer Rich Hebert for attending. It was really, really great to get out there and get it cleaned up. Also, I want to say there's a garden cleanup at the Sandy Point Bird Sanctuary on March 23rd. Dave Clean is heading that up from the Sandy Point Volunteers, and that's at 10 o'clock. And then lastly, I talked to the mayor about this. We might be able to get a grant from the Audubon Society, and it will be for the West Haven Police Department to fund officers at the Sandy Point Bird Sanctuary. This money came from the Robert Schulman Fund, and I found out about it last week at the Shorebird and Seabird presentation. So that was with Deep and Audubon. So I will keep you guys updated. I'm going to send the email to the mayor tomorrow, and the police chief already knows about it. So we're good to go.
Thank you. Any other new business?
I'm sorry, but I don't know if Mr. Johnstone said this, but Read Across America went great. Yeah. With the kids.
Very nice.
It was really fun. I went to 2 schools. Thank you.
Any other new business?
I wasn't going to ramble off a bunch of new business, but when you mentioned Read Across America, I want to make sure everybody knows Mondays. Wait, is Monday St. Patrick's? Yes. We are honoring Steve Dargan, who was the state representative for 26 years before I was the state representative. Wonderful guy, well-deserved, and you are all invited.
Who was that again? I'm not
What
familiar.
time?
You had to ask me that. I'm going to go at 12. 12.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Whoa. Do I have a second? All in favor? Any opposed? Have a good night. Thank you for watching at home.